ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to Yorkshire Gamers Read Big Wargames podcast. And today we are on episode 46 of that particular podcast, but it's also episode 5 of Brews in the Binyard. So, if you haven't listened to one of these before, I shall go through it very shortly. But I'd just like to say thank you very much to my last guest, Mark Hydes. We had a fantastic chat about loads of things old school. That was released 10 days ago. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it yet, it's available on Podbean as usual and will be released very, very shortly on YouTube. And it was a cracking chat with Mark about loads of stuff. He's an author, he's a painter. He's an old school gamer. He's heavily involved in Triples, the classic war game show. So give that a listen. Pop down to his website, Conflict in Colour, and read all about his professional painting service. So today, it's going to be Brews in the Binyard. We've had lots of new people listen since we did the last one at Christmas. So, a little bit of a warning if you haven't heard one before, these are very, very different to the normal, in inverted commas, programs that I do. And this is myself, Sean Clark from God's Own Scale podcast, and Alex Sotheran from the Storm of Steel Utubes channel. It's a lot more freeform. We are a lot more relaxed. It's meant to be humorous. We're not having a go at anyone in any of the things that you hear and say, and we have a go at some difficult, that's probably the wrong word. We have a go at some interesting topics. That's probably the best way of saying it. So, the format's different. It's in 3 parts. The first part, we have a general catch up, and this time we have got the draw for the first round of the Yorkshire Gamers World Cup of Historical Miniatures rules. So that's well worth tuning in and listening to. The second part, we go through the entries into Room 101 and have a chat about them and confirm their entry into the Vault of Doom. And I chuck in a little bit of a chat about the Midwinter Minis. If you play war games, you're a Nazi. Program YouTube video that caused a bit of controversy a month or so ago. And then finally, in the third part, it's Ask Our Nora, which is the roundtable questions which we have got from you lovely people out there, the listeners. So, as always, sit back. It's going to be another long one, but it's. I hope you get a few laughs out of this one. Get yourself a cup of tea, put your feet up, enjoy Brews in the Binyard, because without further ado, here's the interview. Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are listening to this, and episode 46 of the Yorkshire Gamer podcast, also known as episode 5, I think it is, of Brews in the Binyard.
Has it been that many?
So, yeah, it feels like a lifetime, I know. So I thought I would do a little ditty before we start, as I always do. So, summertime, and the living is easy. The fleas are jumping, and the niff from the old nappies is high. Your tea is rich, but your Italian wars is good looking. So hush in the cellar and don't you cry. One of these mornings, the mould on your wet palate will rise. You will smell the varnish and take to the sky. But till that morning, you're listening to this guff with me, Alex and Sean. So now it's summertime and the painting is easy. Those maggots are squirming and the bread's gone off. But the coffee is mucky and the tea's good looking. So let's end all this bollocks and start the summertime brews. Apologies to George Gershwin, who is now spinning in his grave.
That high-pitched whistle you can hear is him spinning.
I've just solved the world's electricity problems. I've put a magnet on him, put a bit of copper wire round his coffin.
That was some introduction.
It was emotional.
It was.
So
brought a tear to my eye.
It's time to meet the boys because the boys are here. Boys to entertain you. Joining me tonight on this biannual podcast World Cup special are the two stalwarts of this podcast. And yes, it's still them two. In the Brown Garden Waste Bin corner, we have our resident star of the Utubes. It's Mr. Hendo's Relish 1998, Storm of Steel's very own Alex Sotheran. Hello, Alex.
How do, Ken?
Hey.
I'll not spoil the next guest name by naming him.
No, it's a surprise for everyone.
It's a surprise to me.
Because rummaging amongst the wine bottles in the glass recycling box, hoping for a half-empty bottle of Shiraz, is my next guest. His podcast, God's Own Scale, has risen to the ashes to fly like a phoenix, which might explain his slightly burnt collar. So, please welcome the next king of Mexico. It's Sean Clark.
Yay.
Buenos dias.
Hey, buenos dias. How are we doing, guys?
All good.
Have you ever heard the sound of one hand clapping?
Yeah,
That's the round of applause we've just got.
Yeah, in Ripon.
Yeah. It's the sound of people turning off.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hitting
Reach
the
the
off
off button.
Do you know in Ripon they clap loud because they've all got 6 fingers?
Is that right?
That's why rock bands like playing there. You see, they get better applause.
Well, that's part of the audience alienated. Let's see what else we can do tonight.
Oh, who did piss? I can't remember who I pissed off last time. I said somebody was a shit tip. I can't remember where it was.
Large swathes of the UK, I'm sure.
Anywhere outside of Yorkshire, isn't it?
Well, we should be all pissed off. Have you seen the news today, Alex? You're all right with the show, but have you seen the news today, Alex, about Yorkshire Water? They've done one of them. They've done one of them fancy adverts, you know, where they fly through the dales and everything, and talk about we're bringing you great water. It's Yorkshire water, but they've used the hillsides in Derbyshire. What a set of arseholes. You've got a company called Yorkshire Water.
That is.
Apart from Leeds, and Bradford, you've got some really nice scenery. You can just go up in the dales.
Literally got half of the country.
Yeah.
Up here.
I've seen Happy Valley. I think that's set up there, isn't it?
That's in
Skelmersthwaite or something.
Yeah, I think it's Todmorden, which is one of those kind of doesn't really know whether it's Yorkshire or Lancashire places.
Oh, really? Is it border?
Yeah.
Yeah, we keep trying to pass it to each other. No, you have it. No,
Nobody wants it.
Yeah. But now it's famous. We'll have it. I think it is. I think it is currently in Yorkshire.
What I did want to ask Ken was because I almost, not quite, but almost feel an honorary Yorkshireman being on a 2/3 Yorkshireman podcast. And
can I just interrupt you there? It's never going to happen. Facts don't care about your feelings, Sean. It doesn't matter. You're never going to be a Yorkshireman.
No, listen. So my only knowledge of Yorkshire was really based on Last of the Summer Wine.
Oh,
so I wondered
quality.
which characters we were. Who was Compo? Who was Clegg? And who was Foggy?
I've always been associated with the Clegg character. From previous with a previous discussion, I've got a friend from school who's tall and lanky, and he was always the tall one because that changed a couple of times, didn't it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
And then I had another friend who was a bit scruffy and looked like he hadn't had a bath for a month, and he was always Foggy, not Foggy,
Compo.
Well, just so I can feel part of it, I'm more than willing to take on the role of the scruffy Compo.
Yeah, you can be Compo.
Sorry?
Excellent.
You can be Compo.
I'll
You can be
Compo.
Nora Batty if you want.
Well, It does give me access to Nora Batty, doesn't it?
Foggy Dewhurst was the tall one with the glasses who used to be in the army. Well, he was around for ages, wasn't he?
Yes. Peter Salis, I think his name was, or Salis.
No, he was Clegg.
Yeah,
that was
Clegg, wasn't it? Yeah, because he went on to do The voice of Wallace and Gromit, didn't he?
But Foggy was the prison warden, wasn't he, in Porridge?
He was. Oh, look at you and your 70s TV knowledge. People have turned this on and they've gone, wargaming.
Not
happening again. It's fucking happening again.
You can imagine somebody, can't you, in Buttcrack, Alabama, tuning into this and listening to this nonsense. Thinking, what are these idiots talking about? Well, that's the sound of the off switch right there.
It's culture.
I just want to say, Alex, is that your cat's tail or are you happy to see us?
Bit of both. Bit of column A, bit of column B.
Oh.
We'll say nothing about pussies. Anyway, moving on, Ken. Over to you.
I'll be going to the doctors if mine had that amount of fur on it.
I'd give it a trim if I were you.
Yeah, to be fair, I'd be joining the circus if it could bend like that as well.
That's for the OnlyFans.
Well, thankfully this is audio only, so
I've got a story about OnlyFans, but we'll leave it.
I was just about to say that people would have to look at it, but imagine it on an audio podcast. But please don't.
Yeah, don't. You'll need a mind bleach, I think.
Yeah, counselling is available from your local NHS. Is this OnlyFans story?
No.
No.
Move on.
No. So, Sean, God's Own Scale, it's back.
Yeah.
With a vengeance.
You've had some awesome guests on.
Have I?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, apart from that first... Oh, sorry, Ken. Yeah. Well, I did say I'd reserved episode 51 for you. But I've got the numbering all mixed up.
Have I just been on 47 or something?
Yeah, well, something along those lines. But more interestingly, I've been today has been one of those slow news days at work. So I did take advantage of listening to a podcast, and Alex came in my ears.
Oh.
Back to the OnlyFans again.
Hey.
As the guest presenter of the hobby support group,
that's right. Yeah, did that last week. They got that out pretty quick. Yeah. It was good fun. The lads asked me along for their number 100 episode.
They clearly didn't trust you, Alex, because they set the questions themselves.
They did.
Didn't fancy a Jeremy Paxman, did they?
No, definitely not. I did say I was going to throw in a couple of random ones, but I didn't get a chance because they put so many together in the first place.
And they can waffle, can't they?
Yes.
So you were asking them their questions?
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a good listen. Though. They're two good lads.
Yeah, they are.
Andy and Tom.
They are. They're nice lads, and it was good fun.
I've told my story. And I'm keeping it.
I
mean, this is different. This is not fun, but that was fun.
Well,
but Alex, just savour these moments that we're having outside of the basement.
Well, that's true. Yeah, we can see sunlight, can't we? And
I've got some news. I've got some news for you guys, and I may as well do it on air now because unfortunately you're both getting evicted because I don't need any more 28mm figures painting. So I'm getting Dave Marshall and Joe the Wargamer because I need some terrain doing. So if you could be out by Friday,
I feel a bit offended now. Actually,
I'm kind of grown accustomed to the place.
Yeah, the smell especially. It was.
Yeah.
I missed that.
Yeah, I counted the drips down the wall from the damp.
The cellar. Bit of rat urine.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Wait, where are you going to get your paintbrushes now from? Your rat hair source has gone, Sean.
Well, judging by whatever poked up on Alex's screen, I'll just use that.
Yeah. Well, you get some coverage with that, wouldn't you?
I'll pluck a few out of that.
You certainly would.
You'd be doing walls. You'd be
Are you
doing
releasing
walls.
this as a video on YouTube as well, or not?
No, yeah, I might give that a miss. Thankfully, you have to pay to record the video. It's a bit like OnlyFans in reverse.
But anyway, sorry. Yes, I've got to scale back. I've thoroughly enjoyed getting back into the seat. I'm overdue an episode, but I've got somebody lined up for the next one.
You've had the Partisan lads on.
Yeah, that was good.
Trying to think who else you've had on. Oh, Chris Pringle, Bloody Big Battles.
Yeah, that was an interesting one. So he's an interesting guy with quite a back catalogue of sets of rules he's written, and then obviously Tom from Little Wars TV and Mark Fastoso from the latest hotness that is on the Utubes, and
wow,
competing with Alex for King of the Tubes.
Yeah, has he launched his channel yet? Because I think he was just about to launch it when I listened to you.
Yeah, he launched it on D-Day.
He did, yeah, quite a lot of content up on there. I thought the episode with the George Lutz, I'm sure I've said that wrong. The guy from Band of Brothers, or the son of the guy from Band of Brothers. Yeah, I thought that was excellent.
It was very good.
Just remind us what the channel is again, because I've forgotten.
Mark's Game Room.
Mark's Game Room. All right, cool. I did mean to check it out after I listened to your podcast with him, and then I forgot.
I mean, I like to think I went quite highbrow because Mark is an Emmy award-winning film producer.
That's very good. That.
It sort of tops my grade 4 CSE in woodwork.
That's well done. That I'm impressed. You've gone a long way for a lad with a grade 4 CSE woodwork. Obviously not in the woodwork trade, but
well, I was a wooden top for a while, but
yeah, that's true.
Anyway, yes. So thank you, and thank you, Ken. Public thanks for being the first guest back on. You eased me in gently, as they say.
And I will accept your public apology for stealing my Desert War game idea.
I've no idea what was going on there, mate. To be honest.
I thought
I've come up with this.
I'm sure I've heard this before. And then next episode, bless you did apologise, so I'll let you know. But I do have to say, Chris Pringle did make me laugh because he went, you can fight the biggest battles ever on a 6-foot table in 3 hours, and I went, I'm out.
I thought you'd have liked that bit.
Yeah, that was like no. But horses for courses and all that.
We're a broad church.
We are a broad church, mate. I'm glad we've got that one in.
I've got it in.
We are a broad church.
And I think we're all getting broader and broader as we get older as well.
Exactly. How many X's can you have before the L in the T-shirt? Because
they've ran out at Tesco's.
Yeah. They should put age numbers on it, shouldn't they, rather than chest size? It's just age.
Yeah.
There we go. Anyway.
Talk about toy soldiers.
Why?
We'll get me on to cricket in a minute.
Shocking. So, Alex, Storm of Steel then. How many zillion subscribers are you on now?
I'm actually closing in on 11,000 at this point.
11,000?
Yeah.
That's a lot of relatives.
It is. It's a lot. It takes me a long time to set up each of those individual profiles to like my own stuff, but yeah, it's paying off slowly. Actually, to be honest, subscribers are going down. I don't know if it's plateaued or not or what. I don't know. You get to a point where, because I always check my analytics and stuff, there was a point where it was really rising, and now it's kind of plateaued a little bit. Still obviously getting new subscribers all the time, but I don't know what it is, to be honest, and I can't figure it out. I don't know if I'm doing something right or if I'm doing something wrong. But I'm happy enough for where it's at. It's still earning a bit of ad revenue, which you can't complain at. The only problem is at the moment, because we talked about this just before we started. It's not a problem, but my wife has come back to the UK permanently. So my time for making videos is a lot less than it was previously, when I could spend all day Saturday doing it. Now, there's a few more designs on my time than there were before. But obviously that's for a good reason. But it just means I've got don't panic. I've got enough videos at the moment set up till October, and I've got a plan while she's away in September to record a ton of
back-to-back recording.
Exactly. It's just going to be take some time off work and then just record a load of stuff. So I've got a load of backup. So it's all right. I'm not worried at the moment, but you never know. There might come a point where things start to run down a little bit, but we'll see. She's very supportive of the channel. She's very supportive of me doing it and as a hobby and stuff. So I can't
find another job in another far-flung country, Alex.
Absolutely, that's it. Yeah. Well, off you pop. Go on over to see you.
Well, my missus is an only child, and I'm an only child as well, so we're quite happy within having our own space, and she's quite happy to just tell her right bugger off. In fact, I've picked up some terrain boards. The only problem is they're in fucking Scotland. So I've got a nice price on them. I'm happy with it, but I've got to travel to Scotland. But I need her car, you see, because she's got one of these planet-destroying SUVs, which are dreadful until you actually need to carry something. So I'm trying to be good at the moment, and so I can borrow a car.
That could be a boys' trip.
Yeah.
It's
actually, I'm planning. If I'm going to go, I'm planning to go next weekend, so I can accidentally drive past Claymore.
Good idea.
I've never been to Claymore. That's one of those
no.
bucket list shows that I think I'd always fancy having a look at.
Yeah,
it's a good one. You had a trip to Lard Island as well, Alex.
I did. That's ages ago now. Yeah, April time, wasn't it? God, yeah. Very nicely, Richard got in touch and invited me down. So occasionally playing lardy games does pay off. All expenses paid. It was lovely. No, they put me up in a lovely hotel in St Albans. Met up with Rich and Sid the night before. We had a nice meal and a few drinks and a laugh and a chat, and then spent the next day playing a couple of games. So we played Rich's First World War Chain of Command in the morning, which is something he'd kind of written specifically for it. So I'd also been badgering him as well for a while. But he has got a Chain of Command version of First World War, but it's this one was more, he's kind of expanded it a little bit, but I don't think he's done anything with it because he's been sat on the Far East handbook and also What a Cowboy and stuff. So I don't think there's been anything done with it. But we played that, then we played Chain of Command Far East in the afternoon. And I played that with Nick. Nick came across as well. Cool. So we had a good game with them, and then went out for a meal around St Albans with those guys, and then I went to have a look at Verulinium, the Roman town, the next morning, and then buggered off home. Yeah, it was great. Nice. It was really nice, and I really appreciated the fact that they invited me down and were hospitable. Is the word?
Well, the hospitality wasn't as good as your other trip that you had. He's looking blank now.
Trying to think. Been up to York. That was fun.
Fucking hell.
Is there anywhere else I went?
Did you leave a bad review?
I went to the butcher's and bought you a special pie.
You certainly did. And again, following on from that, of course, came up to see Ken with Andy as well. Nice, Dad. That was good as well. When was that? That was it was snowy, wasn't it? So that must have been was it February time?
Yeah, it was after.
Yeah, it must have been.
It was after Christmas. All I can think of is between Christmas and summer brews in the Binyard. That's all I can think. You see.
Yeah.
That's how my year is planned out.
It's a blur in between, isn't it? But yeah, that was great, wasn't it? We played O Group. I brought that up. I think you enjoyed it.
I did. I really did enjoy it. Actually, I like my tanks. I like my big tables.
and we had a small table and no tanks. So I thought, but I did really enjoy the game, and I did enjoy the mechanics of O Group, and it's one of those that you can kind of get more into it as time goes by, and learn more of it as time goes by. And we've played quite a few games of it down at the club now.
Yeah.
Obviously with a shitload of tanks, but
of course. I would always think, I don't know, I've never really played it with that many tanks. There are a couple of scenarios that have been produced with tanks in mind, obviously like Kursk and stuff. I've just not got around to playing them, but I would have thought that it actually slows down a little with tanks, with lots of tanks on the table. I don't know, what do you think?
Yeah, it does make it, because everything's firing at each other, and there's always that classic. It's also always so difficult in a set of World War II rules to get that like Blitzkrieg effect of moving tanks, because as soon as you move in any set of rules, you can't hit anything. But the being hit coming back is doesn't seem to make a lot of effect. So you tend to take a lot of casualties pushing forward with tanks, which makes you wonders why, if it was that bad in real life, why would anyone do it?
Well,
unless you're Russian, and then no one cares if you're dead or not.
Well, if you read any of the accounts of Goodwood and Epsom and stuff like that, the British armour took a right lamping off the Germans until they realised they worked out their tactics and to go in with infantry rather than just rushing pell-mell in. So they change tactics. But what I mean from an O Group point of view is the infantry rules are so simple and streamlined that you're rolling 2d6 for every section. So 66 for a platoon or whatever. Whereas with the tanks, because you fire individual shots at individual tanks in it, although they're meant to be like 5 tanks, aren't they? And there's a lot of chart looking up. And I know you love your charts.
I love a chart.
You do love a chart.
There's not enough penetration tables in them rules.
And they are quite simple, because you roll to hit and then you roll to penetrate, and that's pretty much it, isn't it? Yeah. It's just 2 rolls. But I still think you've got to look at a chart for the penetration. You can kind of hold it in your head because it kind of fits in with the rest of the rules, like 7+ is a save, or a 7+ is a hit or whatever. But yeah, I just think I would have thought that more tanks just makes it a little bit slower. But as I say, I've never played it with that many tanks on the table anyway.
Yeah, I think because we were learning it as well, that you kind of didn't really notice whether it made it any slower or not, because we were
it's going to be slow anyway, isn't it? Yeah, probably play 2 rules. 2 turns.
I've got Dave Brown coming on later in the year, so I'll tell him to stop mucking about with quick rules and get some proper penetration tables in.
No, he needs to. It's about command, Ken. It's not about penetration.
It is. It's always about penetration. Oh, we've lost our monetization long ago. So, Sean, what have you been gaming, mate? Have you got on the table recently?
So it's been a little bit of a fallow period for me, to be honest, just because of work and my daughter's activities. Really seems to have taken up a lot of time. I'm not really sure I can show you what I've been doing.
Oh God, he's done some fantasy shit.
Just
oh my God,
what's that?
I am going to say, and you might be surprised, is that an Orc Boys war chopper?
Deathcopter.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my.
So
there's a small tale behind this. Where I live in North Shropshire on the North Staffordshire border, my nearest town is called Market Drayton, which is about 3 or 4 miles down the road from where I am. And it's a typical old market town in the fact that there's not very much there. There is a small WH Smith's and a Costa, but it's mainly second-hand shops and pubs. But much to my delight and surprise, we've had a gaming store open called Mighty Melee Games, run by a guy called Phil, who I've now become good friends with. He has been running an online business for some time, selling Games Workshop stuff, essentially. and needed some more space. So he found an empty unit in town, and he's now set up this friendly local gaming store, which has now got a thriving little gaming community attached to it with games nights. It's right next to a Jules pub,
Nice.
where they give up the back function room for the gaming night, and Phil's got quite a few plans there. So it's sort of coincided, and gosh, I know this isn't a confessional, because you would be the last two priests that I would go to confess my sins to.
You'll be Hail Marying for the rest of your life.
God, yeah.
But due to a bit of a swathe of excitement that has run through the Stoke club, 40k has come back with a vengeance. So we've been playing a little bit of that, a bit of 40k. And because we are a broad church, and we're all very accepting, aren't we, of the diversity that comes with it. Stop shaking your head. So I think more as a palate cleanser and a bit of fun than a few others have sort of dived into that, and consequently supported by doing so, supported Phil at Mighty Millie Games by placing a few orders with him.
You said he's a friend, but he's selling you more Warhammer 40k stuff. And how does that work?
Listen, it's plastic crack. What can I say? It's real.
It's like saying your drug dealer's your best mate.
Yeah. It's absolutely real. So I am now surrounded by plastic crack from Mighty Millie Games. I think
how the mighty have fallen.
I know I think what led to it was I absolutely blitzed through the rest of my Mexican Revolution collection. So I've now completed the Mexican Revolution. It's done.
Oh my God.
All of it done.
It's been done for about 100 years, hasn't it?
On my painting table, but it felt like it had been there for 100 years. And because I'd painted virtually non-stop for probably 6 or 7 weeks, and when I get going, it's like it really is. It is a real marathon of painting to get it done. I needed something more whimsical, let's say. And what more whimsical can you get than an orc deathcopter?
I'm gobsmacked.
You're both speechless, aren't you?
Stunned silence.
Stunned into silence, I know. And any cred that I may have had, and let's face it, the chances of me having
you got together have now just been dashed to the winds.
Yeah, let's face it, it would have been virtually zero.
Didn't you say on the last one or the one before that you were looking at buying? Excuse me if I get this wrong. The Horus Heresy box set.
I was, but I think I can't comment. No comment.
I reckon he's probably got a box of Leviathan right behind him that he's hiding.
Yeah.
He's pulling something down. He's pulling something down.
Dear.
Describing this for the listeners. And there it is.
Oh my God.
There it is. There you go. 800 quid. How many 15mm figures could that buy you?
800 quid. Well, it bought me quite a lot, but because I bought it from my friendly local gaming store, I made a significant saving.
Okay.
600 quid. Games.
Okay, for the thick people at the back, what's Leviathan?
It's Warhammer 40k reboxed.
Well, no.
Is it the little baby 40k?
Oh no, that's coming back, isn't it?
The 4K, the little tiny one.
They are coming back, but rebranded, obviously, Epic. Slightly bigger than the old Epic.
Oh, so it's 5K.
8mm.
It's like your telly, but with more detail.
But I'm surrounded by Black Library books.
Oh my God.
He's fallen.
We've lost him. We've lost him. Blood Bowl. Oh, he's gone.
Hellfire.
Oh my.
Honestly.
What else? Necromunda.
I just keep repeating it myself. Everybody's allowed to do what they want. Everyone's allowed to do what they want.
Exactly.
Everyone's allowed to do what they want.
I heard you on the
It's just a hobby. It's just a hobby. It's just a hobby.
And Tom. There's a box here just full of old remnants of 40k. Warhammer Fantasy. I know.
All right, Sean. It's a serious question. How does it play compared to other war games? 40k.
Right. So, my philosophy.
Let me just say, I've not played it since Rogue Trader 2nd edition. I think 40k.
Yeah. So, my philosophy in general with anything like this is that the people that you play with is far more important than the actual game you're playing.
Very true.
You could be playing tiddlywinks as long as you're playing with people that you enjoy spending time with. So
that'd be cheaper.
With that caveat to one side, we've really enjoyed it. I think that there's a real bad rep around 40k in particular, because it can be, well, there's two things. It can be whoever spends the most wins. So if you can afford the biggest toy, then you'll win. And the other one is that it can encourage some hyper-competitive players who will look at, there's a flourishing competitive scene. You know, they have events where 400 people turn up to play Warhammer 40k in a competition over a weekend. They have team events all over the world. I think it's called the Warhammer 40k Team Championship is coming up in August, and I think there's 32 teams with 8 players on each team from all over the world. They're all travelling from Australia, from the States, from the Far East, from all over Europe. So there is this real high competitive element, and I think you need to stay away from that. Certainly me. I've got to stay away from that. I've got a group of friends that I role play with, as in Dungeons and Dragons, nothing sinister. Just
nothing daft or anything.
Nothing daft. No, it's just elves and pixies, mate.
You're not all throwing your keys into a bowl or anything, are you?
Well, that's at the end of the night.
Pampas grass outside the house, that kind of thing. Yeah.
We're all...
See, I didn't know about that. We've got pampas grass outside our house, and it was there when we moved in, and I didn't know that.
And we're swingers. I never put the two together.
I wondered why people in leather helmets kept knocking off the door. No, I don't want any today, love. No begging.
That group that I role play with, which is there's 7 of us all told, we're all very like-minded in how we enjoy a game, and they're the only people I ever want to play with 40k. Because if I play with some of the guys at my club who are into the competitive scene, who can roll dice faster than you can blink, I'd be lost. But it's a nice little sideline, a nice little distraction. I am still a historical gamer to the core, but it's been a lovely little sojourn.
Yeah, I think it's the same in any type of gaming, isn't it? You can have that ultra competitive competition gaming in historical war gaming, in Flames of War and stuff like that, and it's just not my scene.
You can, but from what I know, and admittedly my knowledge of the 40k competitive scene isn't massive, but the competitiveness that you see there. Have you heard the story about the loaded dice at an Element Games competition?
Yeah, I just saw a video about that just a week or so ago. Somebody go on, you tell it, Sean.
I've not heard it.
Right, so 10th edition Warhammer is literally just landed, and like anything that's any of these sorts of games, it's come out a little bit broken and a little bit biased towards one faction in particular, which is the Eldar. And the Eldar have got some super duper toys that just means they can basically win in the first turn.
Are they space elves?
Space elves for the uninitiated. Well done, Ken.
There you go. Well done, Ken. Well done.
Look how pleased he is. Oh,
yeah, well, you know. It's a big thing.
But anyway, so there was a competition, I think the week after or maybe 2 weeks after the edition has launched. And people have rocked up, and a guy's turned up with a super duper Eldar army. But he's also turned up with some special dice. So these dice just happened to keep rolling either a 6 or a 1 whenever he needed to, and those would be the dice he needed when it.
Yeah.
So he basically got found out, I think, at the start of the 4th game, where they've had to roll dice to see who gets the first turn. First turn traditionally being really important, particularly for how the Eldar army works. And somebody's walked past the table as he's rolled a 6. His opponent's rolled a 6, luckily enough, and he's rolled a 6 again in the re-roll and beat his opponent, so he's got the first turn. And somebody's walked past the table and says, actually, that's happened 2 or 3 times now. I'm a bit unhappy about these dice. So anyway, they call him out on it, and somebody ran out to go and get some salt from a local shop, because if you put salt in water and then put loaded dice into it, then it tends to float towards the loaded number. Anyway, the funny bit about it, which makes it brilliant, there is a funny bit, honestly. The funny bit is that he got called out on it, so he's packed all his toys away. But before anybody could get these dice off him and test them to see if they were loaded, he's disappeared into the toilet and tried to flush them down the toilet. However, being heavy, they've just sat at the bottom of the pan, and they've landed on the 6 and the 1.
Oh!
The toilet pan. And then he's disappeared, and then somebody's gone into the toilet and said his dice in the bottom of the store. So Element Games, to their credit, have taken a picture of it and stuck it on the wall as a sort of salutary lesson about flushing.
I suppose if it's in the bottom of the toilet, it should be on a 1 and a 2, shouldn't it?
Well, true. Yes. Good one, Ken. Yes. But it just went to prove the loadedness of these 2 dice. I don't know why I've told you that, but there you go.
No, that was a good one. I have to hold my hand up and say that I've now got a financial interest in Games Workshop. I do a little bit of dabbling on the stock market. I've bought one Games Workshop.
Well,
they're like 100. They're 100 odd quid.
Yeah, they are on the way up again. Their latest financial report came out yesterday or the day before, and they are going gangbusters at the minute. They're just making money.
I bought some Hornby shares, and they were 18p each.
That's since they took over Warlord.
Well, they went up 1 pence that day, which was
not bad. Depends how many shares you've got. You can make something off that if you've got a million of them. Yeah,
Games Workshop. So I do have a financial interest in people buying shit now. So
does that mean you can get into the board, not the board meetings, the shareholder meetings?
Oh, I don't know. Might be, but 1 share you think would be quite a low threshold.
You sit right at the back.
So in a big queue, how many shares have you got? 3,000.
I mean, they are bigger. Games Workshop are bigger than some very well-known multinational companies that are based in the UK, aren't they?
They are, but they've got lots of fingers in lots of pies, haven't they? It's not just figures. I mean, it's like it's like you've shown it. The Black Library books, there's computer games, there's the channel, there's all kinds of stuff that they do.
They've got an Amazon deal, haven't they?
Is that right? I don't know.
Wasn't there supposed to be a film coming out with
Henry Cavill,
Superman guy?
Henry Cavill. So in the financial report that came out a couple of days ago, I think it said that it's still in development. So I have no idea how these things work, but it's still on the cards.
They take a long time to make films.
So that means that somebody called James is drawing some cartoons on a piece of paper somewhere in the office.
Pretty much.
Still in development.
Very possible.
Still in development, yeah.
But when you've got Henry Cavill, you've got who was the guy who played Hellboy not very successfully? Was in Stranger Things. David Harbour. He's painting stuff. He's come out as playing Warhammer, and you've got Tom Holland, Spider-Man, who's showing interest in it. And you've got it is that it's no longer this dirty secret. I think It never has been a dirty secret to me. Wargaming hasn't. But I think when you get personalities like them coming out who've got huge followings across the world, then I think it can only do the whole hobby good, to be honest.
Well, it has, it's exploded over the last 10, 15 years. I mean, you got the board game world completely has exploded, and you've got board game cafes everywhere, that kind of geek in inverted commas culture. Things like you mentioned, Stranger Things was a big thing, I guess, as well for things like Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
And that's got massive as well, hasn't it? The problem is when things like this get really big, like Dungeons and Dragons, people get quite dogmatic about it. Like when Dungeons and Dragons first invented it, it's a fantasy for people to make up their own worlds within. It's a sandbox. But nowadays, I sometimes see it on Twitter, although I kind of turned off the Dungeons and Dragons hashtags because I got fed up of it. But you see people arguing over, fantasy creatures and things like that. It's like, it's your game. Just play it how you want to play it. It's just a set of rules to do stuff. You don't have to do as it says. There's nobody sitting over your shoulder. But there's a lot of people that think like that. And I think that's probably the problem when things do get a bit more. And that's probably like the competitive side of Warhammer, as you were mentioning. The more people are into the competitive side of it, the more it gets like somebody rolling loaded dice to try and win a game.
Yeah.
If you have a little competition between 8 of you at a club, then you're probably all good sports.
Yeah.
If you have a competition when you've got 800 people, there is going to be a certain amount of those people who are absolute bastards.
Yeah. Who just want
and
to
they're
win.
going to try to win for however.
Just the law of averages, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So I think I don't really know where I'm going with this, but I'm just saying I think there's a massive rise of popularity of geek culture, and Warhammer is certainly leading that in the miniatures realm. Dungeons and Dragons leading it in the role playing realm, and I think it's good for all the hobby. I guess it filters down to other stuff.
One thing that's sorry, Ken, this is just slightly tangential.
Yeah, did we actually have a topic tonight, or is this just us chatting?
Oh, fucking loads! It's just us chatting, and then we've got. I've got loads of controversial things to talk about, but we're doing all right with this.
Let me give you one controversial.
I've got pampas grass in my front garden.
One controversial thing for you. So, and this is aimed at YouTubers, not at you, Alex, because you don't do this. And
he's a senior YouTuber.
We'll see if I do this.
No, you definitely don't do this, and I don't think many historical YouTube channels do. But in the game, particularly in the Games Workshop realm of YouTubers, which is huge, you get people with hundreds of thousands of subscribers.
I know. Tell me about it.
That follow games. If you put Games Workshop in your YouTube channel, you'd be on 100,000 within a week, Alex. I'm sure.
Yeah. Makes me fucking sick.
Yeah. But there's been a real trend recently, or it may be that I've only just recognised this trend. But they have these negative clickbait headlines that say something like "Games Workshop is doomed." And there'll be the presenter with a sad face on the thumbnail, or what have Games Workshop done to 40k? Sad face. And these YouTube channels will release 10, 15-minute videos, or even an hour-long videos where the presenter is talking in the negative about the game, and it's purely clickbait because people will click on it. So, what have Games Workshop done now that's wrong? So wrong. And you'll see they've got 30, 40, 50, 60,000 views on these videos. And that basically, they talk about nothing. They talk about the issues that they come up with. Well, listen, it might be important to them and it might be important to their viewership. But I see more and more on my YouTube feed now where you see the thumbnail and there'll be somebody looking shocked or disappointed and this negative headline talking about some element of the wider hobby, in fact. The grain of the hobby or something like that.
It's something that's been around for the last few years, actually. I've noticed it as well, and yeah, it is a rise. I note Troy from Sonic Sledgehammer, he'd mentioned it on Twitter a couple of years ago. He was asking why there were so many gurning faces on his YouTube when he logged in. You're right.
That's a great description.
It is,
Well,
yeah.
To me, they always look like they're in some stage of having a crap. they're either desperate for a crap, or
they've just had one.
they've just had one and forgotten to take the trousers off before they've done it.
We've all been there.
That's a sad face. Yeah. I'm there now.
Have you seen that?
Why do you think I look like this?
Have you seen that Poonami advert for the? I can't remember what it's for. There's a baby that
Pampers or something.
No, but they always look like that, and I always think. I mean, you don't do it, Alex. You don't kind of go.
Yeah, that's exactly
point
the
to things, and
well, the thing is, what it boils down to is it's a YouTube algorithm. The algorithm recognizes human faces, and if you have a human face on a thumbnail, people are more likely to click. So if you stick your face on there, and then also with big arrows, and also a clickbaity title, also with a Games Workshop logo, somebody's more likely to click on that than they are elsewhere. So yeah, that's what is driving their clicks. I mean, I notice it with when I do my bench report hobby updates, which I've tried to do weekly, but they're less and less so this time because again, going back to what I said about my wife moving back, I kind of half do it a little bit, Sean, so I'm not entirely guilt-free of this, because when I do those, I specifically take a screenshot of me holding something up that I'm talking about in that video. But I'm not gurning. It's not quite the same thing, Alex, I don't think. In a way,
I understand about putting your face there for the algorithm. I understand that, but you're not putting a doom-laden headline, are you?
No, I'm definitely not. No, I don't do that. Like no, I'm certainly not doing that. Yeah, and no, I don't like those kind of clickbaity thumbnails, so I wouldn't do that. But yeah, I mean, I have used my image, and I've noticed it when I put up a picture of just figures on the thumbnail. The views were really, really down. When it's a picture of me, no matter what I'm holding, the views are up.
Really?
So it is, it's something you can chart and you can see it happening. So you can see why people do it. But yeah, the ones where it is just endlessly like 15 minutes of somebody just slagging off the hobby, it's like, well, why play then?
Yeah.
Find another hobby.
You do always look though, Alex, as if you've had a poo some time ago and you don't need one in the near future. You're kind of serene in the poo face.
I'm rushing through because I can feel it. It's moving through. So that's why they're quite short, because they usually like 15 minutes.
Ask us a question quick.
Right,
Has this been derailed enough yet?
I don't know why I bother with show notes for this.
No, why bother?
I really don't. But we have got something important to do. We have got something important to do this evening. And I've done something a bit stupid, and I have started a World Cup of historical miniatures Wargames rules, which is
what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? Who would have thought that the wargaming community would fail to grasp the basic rules of a simple competition? Anyway. So, I very much enjoy and listen to another podcast called The Rest is History.
Yes.
And The Rest is History have done some World Cups in the past, like World Cups of British Prime Ministers and World Cups of Gods was quite a good one. I enjoyed that one very much, even though my favourite god, Horus, didn't make it into the first round.
Who won?
Disappointed. Was it? I think it was that one who flayed people in Mexico.
Him. Crowd pleaser.
Yeah. Bring him round for
tea.
Bring him round for tea. Hours of entertainment for all the family. And Auntie Jean's never been the same since she was skinned.
She can't sit down and don't get any salt near her.
Exactly. There's this salt intolerant, there's Auntie Jean with no skin. Anyway, I very much enjoyed it, so I thought I'll do it for Wargames. So the way they do it is they have 8 seeds, and they go straight into round 2, and then they bring in 8 others to play off against them. But I thought I'll do a public vote to get 16 rule sets. Fuck, you think this
What
would be
happens
easy?
when you get the public involved?
16 rule sets to then play off against each other to have the 8 who will then play the seeds.
How did that go, Ken?
Why isn't chain of command in? Because it's a seed.
What was the final count of number of rules that went into that?
I don't play any of them.
90, yeah, I don't play any of them. Well, fucking add one then. It's a public vote. You nominate them. I can't see this one. Anyway,
90 odd, wasn't it?
97 got nominated.
Who knew? Who knew it goes that
97. Some I have to say I'd heard of the majority of them. There was a few I had to look up to check the validity.
There's some I've never heard of.
So yeah, it's
I like the guy who said, "Can I vote for my own rules?" that's optimistic.
Yeah.
You play solo. You play solo.
The chances of getting
Canada.
anywhere near the top 16.
Limited.
Yeah.
God loves a trier.
Dave in Wisconsin. I'm going to vote for his rules. Brilliant, I've heard.
Apologies if that was you I've just talked about.
No, I think people know there is a level of humour to everything on this channel.
They should do by now.
Exactly. So
to be fair, they're probably turned off by now anyway.
Yeah. Well, 2,700 votes.
Ooh.
That's impressive.
That's a fucking lot of votes. That is
a lot of votes.
2,699 were me.
Yeah.
Well, the one with Sean.
Yeah.
For David Canada's vote for us.
Not to give the game away, but all the ones I voted for got knocked out. So Furioso didn't make it.
Yeah.
If the Lord spares us, didn't make it. Forlorn Hope didn't make it.
AK-47 got 20th, I think, didn't it? So
it did, yeah. It did very well. It was about 5 or 6 votes off getting in. It was very tight around that particular sort of 16, 17, 18, 19. And I hope nobody realises that Bill Hooks came 17th and they'll think that I've deliberately put it out.
Secret sound.
Yeah. I'm sure the Bill Hooks hit squad will be back on my emails before long. Mm-hmm. So the 8 seeds that I picked were in the Grand Manor, WRG Ancients, all the versions, Fire and Fury, Chain of Command, Bruce Corey Napoleonics, Black Powder, Charles Grant's The War Game, and Rapid Fire. Now, they were based on what I've seen as an influence in the hobby over 45 years, rather than because of those, I've played 5. I've played one of them quite a lot, and I absolutely hate 2 of them.
Are we allowed to ask what?
Silence.
Silence.
I've played 3.
I'm not a fan of In the Grand Manor. Never have been, and I absolutely hate Black Powder. But that might put people off voting for it, so I didn't say that at the time. So I think everyone would pick a different 8 seeds. So what do you guys think about those as seeds?
Yeah, I like him because he's got chain of command in.
Yeah.
I think
it'll win. Let's face it, it'll win. It wins everything.
I think your decision to make it that broad rather than just going, what do I like?
Yeah,
is a better way of doing it. The things that have probably had the most influence on how games have been played, or the amount of people that are playing them, or what's come after them, I think is an important factor in what makes a set of wargame rules good, in inverted commas. That's what I think, and I think you've been if you've included stuff in there that A, you don't like, and B, you hate, I think that's relatively fair.
I can take Black Powder, for example. I can see a lot of people play it. A lot of people have got into the horse and musket period as a result of it. and it's a very popular rule set.
Mhm.
It's the in the grand manner of today, really.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah,
thought,
I mean, it definitely popularised large Napoleonic games, hasn't it?
yeah, it's
For
brought that
sure,
back.
yeah. And you can't argue with that.
But what I didn't want to do is I didn't want to have controversial comment coming up. I didn't want to have Black Powder, Pike and Shot, and Hail Caesar in because effectively they're all the same rule set,
Yeah.
just with different pictures in. So
Don't say that. You give the secrets away.
oh no, emails coming in. I can feel them. I can feel them. But some people, oh well, it's like an old version of rules. But I think if you ever did a World Cup of World Cup teams, I think Brazil 1970 would be in the semi-finals every single time. So just because they're all sets of rules, I mean Charles Grant's The War Game is in there because it was the original, not the original set of rules. You probably go back to Little War, to H.G. Wells or Kriegspiel, but it was the first popular set of rules that everyone had
Kriegspiel, is that like Craigslist?
Yeah, that's him. Is it some foreign European thing? Is it Kriegspiel?
Kriegspiel.
Kriegspiel.
Kriegspiel. I'm going to keep calling it Kriegspiel from now on. Kriegspiel. Islands down road.
I've got one
He runs
comment.
chippy.
Yeah, go on.
One comment on it. I think for me, and now you've explained it, it's absolutely obvious as to why you picked those 8.
Another thing, I didn't want to have like loads of the same thing in there, so I didn't want loads of lardy rules in there.
Yeah.
I didn't want. I mean, it is mostly World War II and Napoleonics, but I tried to spread it out a little bit.
Yeah, but they are the most popular parts of the hobby.
Yeah.
Without you can't
But
deny
I
that.
think each of those rule sets that you've chosen out of those 8 have had an impact on the hobby as a whole, haven't they? At one time or another, each of those sets of rules have been the in thing, the trending set of rules. I think the one for me, which is interesting, is Fire and Fury, because I think that was around about 1990 that came out. So it's been out over 30 years, still being played today. But the thing that for me that puts Fire and Fury in there is that it was probably, I stand to be corrected on this, but it was probably the first full colour rule set with colour pictures in it, and it wasn't a staple bound cardboard thing that's been photocopied in the back of a shop.
It was very, very well produced, wasn't it?
It was well produced, and also it was a great game, and it still is. I think there's still huge fans of it. I know there's another edition of it that's come out, and a regimental version. I think the one controversial bit I would say is that Black Powder probably should be in there. Sorry, Black Powder is in there. Bolt Action should be in there, because I wonder whether. And I don't
it was
know.
Limited to historical rules.
Acknowledged, but I wonder what. I just wonder whether Bolt Action was that more of a gateway game into historicals when that first came out, because it grabbed a lot of the fantasy stroke 40k gamers, because very similar sort of army building type things, the mechanics relatively similar, the same author. So for me, and listen, it's your list, and it's a great list. But the one I would question would be whether Bolt Action should be in there instead of Black Powder. But that would create 3 World War II sets.
And I did consider Bolt Action, but I felt that Rapid Fire had got the longevity on Bolt Action. Although interestingly, with the preliminary round voting, the most popular sets of the rules that you would probably say at the moment are Bolt Action, Flames of War, those kind of crossover games, Team Yankee, that sort of thing. And of those, only Bolt Action did anything in the voting.
Yeah. Was it 3%, something like that?
Yeah. So it did relatively well. It did relatively well.
Agreed. Yeah. But no,
Excellent.
I think that's a great list. Good list. Well done.
Excellent. Right. So, Alex, have you got your bag handy?
I certainly have.
Oh, sounds like the proper FA Cup draw. This Sean's gonna have some shit in it. He's got a dice. He's telling us. Well, excellent.
That's a box of paint just for the special.
Right. God knows how this is going to go, but it's all right. I'm just trying to find my list now.
Never drop your ball back into the bag.
Never.
Never.
Ball bag. Yeah, ball bag.
Back into the bag.
You ball bag. What was that on?
I have no idea. I thought you were just having a senior moment.
No. One of my colleagues at work, a dog handler, you know what they're like, Sean.
Yes.
He used to call everyone ball bags. I think he was Southern though, so
well, it is common vernacular around these parts as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, ladies and gentlemen, being all posh for a moment, we're going to have the draw for the preliminary round of the Yorkshire Gamer World Cup of Historical Wargames rules, and drawing the home teams from the Storm of Steel Wargames Utubes channel will be Alex Sotheran. If you could rattle the and hopefully in there, Alex, you've got numbers 1 to 8.
I certainly have. I've actually the listeners can't see this, but I've actually got my Arkham Horror tokens from Arkham Horror, the living card game, because it goes up to 8, but it's actually minuses, so they're -1 to -8. But I thought that's good.
We can live with that, and we like a bit of Arkham card in this.
We do. I just wish I had more time to play it. That's always the problem. Setting the bloody thing up, if nothing else. Anyway, so you want me to pull the first one?
No. I'm just going to say, Sean will be drawing the away teams, and Sean has got some method of choosing randomly the numbers 9 to 16. We're not quite sure.
Can't quite see what Sean is shaking there. And I don't really.
He's shaking.
I don't want to ask.
It's just off
camera. It's just off camera.
He's shaking his paint.
We're back to the OnlyFans again.
Right. So,
okay, I'm ready.
Tie number 1. The home team is Alex.
I'm excited.
It is. I've been waiting all day for this. -5.
Number 5.
-5.
To the strongest.
Look, prove it. Look, -5. Do you see that? -5.
To the strongest will play.
So I'm assuming I've got no interest in football, so I've got no idea what's happening at the moment. I'm assuming that stays out of the bag.
It does, yes. So we're drawing pairs, Alex. Fucking hell, it's not like we've had an FA Cup for 140 years or whatever.
And I've managed to ignore every single one.
Bradford won it in 1913, sorry. and then all the team went off and got slaughtered in World War One, so we never won it again. Bloody Germans taking our teams, bombing the chippy. So we're drawing pairs, Alex, so they will play against each other in a poll, and the highest one will go through. So to play to the strongest, Sean?
Number 13.
Number 13 is Saga. Saga.
1 and 3.
To the strongest will play Saga. Next ball, Alex.
Both are very popular. I would say, though, I think Saga probably has a clincher on that one for popularity.
It was well down the list. It was well down. What was it? 13th. Yeah. Right, the numbers, the clues in the numbers, Ken.
Right, this one is 8 and 8. 8.
General de Brigade.
Sorry, that's -8.
Dave Brown must have been really happy with that list.
He's got loads in. He's got loads.
Oh, yeah. Right, it's good rules writing.
I've got to roll it again. Number 10.
Lion Rampant.
That's a face-up. I had a game of Lion Rampant the other day, actually.
Yeah, I quite enjoyed it, actually.
Yeah, it was good fun. Good fun.
They're bringing a joint set of rules out with bolt action called Rampant Action. It's got pampas grass on the cover.
You see that tumbleweed, Alex?
Yes, yeah,
Blowing
huge
over.
amounts of it blowing past there.
Moving quickly on, Alex, the home
Somewhere
team
in the distance, the dog barks.
for game 3.
Next one is 7.
7. Number 7 is Multum Eglorium.
I never played it. That's a Plastic Soldier Company one, isn't it?
Yeah, Simon Hawley's been on the podcast in the past.
Yeah,
I've got
right.
it.
Yeah,
I've got it. I quite enjoy it, actually. It's a decent
Yeah.
set. Not that I'm affecting the rules in any way, in the votes.
We'll
play
number 9.
Bolt Action.
Ooh.
I fancy Bolt Action there, I'm afraid.
I think so. I think I fancy that one's chances. So this is people are then going to be voting for these, then, are they?
Against
of the
each
two.
other,
Yeah. Right. Let's have a look. Next one up is 3. Number 3.
Number 3, General d'Armée.
Mr. Brown again.
Another day Brown.
We'll play. I think we've got there was a possibility of a Simon Miller derby. Actually, Dave's 3 sets of rules are all in the top 8, so there isn't a chance of them meeting at this early stage.
Could be in the semi-final though.
Could be in the semi-final.
We'll
Sean knows what's going on.
We'll play number 15.
Thank God one of us does.
Number 15 is Men Who Would Be Kings.
That'd be a
I wasn't overly impressed by that. We played it. We added a random activation at the start of each turn, and we drew like sharp practice. We drew chits to see who went first, and it improved the game. But anyway, sorry,
not something I would be interested in, with like 4 figures aside.
There's a few more than that, but yes, I get you. This is number 1.
Number one is a Battle
Kelly's
Group.
Eye.
And Battle Group will play
number 16.
By Fire and Sword.
It's a surprise one for me, that is.
It was for me as well. But I have to say, By Fire and Sword, everyone who plays it absolutely loves it.
Right.
They say it's one of the best set of rules going. And it's set in this weird kind of twilight period in sort of Eastern, Northern Europe. But people love it.
Yeah, no, well done to it.
What period is it?
Late Renaissance.
Oh, okay.
Eastern,
sort of Polish winged hussars and
right.
all that sort of stuff.
The name rings a bell, but it's probably out of my eye line because it's not a period I'm particularly interested in. Next one, 6.
Hail Caesar. We'll play.
Number 12.
For King and Parliament.
Okay.
Could be an interesting one, that one.
Both big army games.
Yeah.
Next up for me is number 2.
He's doing a number 2, and that's Sharp Practice.
Yeah. Cracking game.
We'll play number 14.
Oh, fucking, it's French. Le Art de la Guerre.
A lot of the guys
ADLG, I think they call
ADLG,
it.
Yes.
Unsurprisingly, I spelt that incorrectly in the original voting, and somebody complained about it. But it's got through to the last 16. I think I put Le Art de the Guerre.
That's an interesting one, that is, because you've got a large skirmish game traditionally played in 28mm up against the successor to DBM and Field of Glory. Is it Field of Glory? The fog.
It is, yeah.
The sort of 15mm competitive game.
Yeah, it seems to be very popular with competitions and stuff, I have to say. And
they play it a lot down the club I go to. There's a few lads that play it. I think they use their old DBA armies.
Sorry, I was just going to say Tim Porter, Mad Axeman, a.k.a., is a big proponent of those.
Ah, yes, that's what I've seen it before.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah.
And so the final round.
Just
hopefully this is worked out.
It should be number 4.
That is number 4, just to prove it. There, you can see it.
Oh, group. Oh, this is what a matchup. What a matchup. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Sorry. I've gone too far.
Come too
Should
soon.
be number 11.
Number 11.
Crossfire.
Crossfire against O Group.
Wow.
That's a bit of an
I know which one I choose out of those two. But yeah, both of those are classics of the genre.
Crossfire is it's that one with no range distances.
Movement. That's right. You move until you do something wrong or somebody shoots at you. Yeah, no turn sequence.
It's always
very
your
clever.
turn.
Mm-hmm.
It's always my turn. My turn.
That's a bit of a granddad of the genre up against the new kid on the block, isn't it?
Yeah,
so just like they do on the telly, I'll just go through those again for people. So round 1 games are To the Strongest versus Saga, General de Brigade versus Lion Rampant, Mortimer Glorium versus Bolt Action, General de Armée versus the Men Who Would Be Kings, Battle Group versus By Fire and Sword, Hail Caesar versus For King and Parliament, Sharp Practice against L'Art de la Guerre. I'll speak French yet. And finally, O Group versus Crossfire. And those rounds will be played the week commencing Monday, the whatever it is next Monday. 21st. Yeah, this will be released on the 21st, and then I'll put the first block of 4 up for voting. Then, if you could do me a favour,
the 31st.
31st.
Yeah, you're going backwards.
Right. Alex, could you do me a favour and put your numbers back in your bag, because we're going to draw the second round.
Ooh. The excitement never starts here, does it?
So, these are the seeded.
I mean, it never ends.
Never ends. So, Grand Manor will play against
6.
The winner of Hail Caesar and For King and Parliament.
Okay.
WRG Ancients in game 2 will play against.
Oh, is it just me doing this now?
Yeah.
No, Shawnee. Okay. Number 8.
The winner of O Group and Crossfire.
Okay. Who was playing against them?
WRG Ancients.
Okay.
All 27 versions.
Number 4.
Fire and Fury will play against the winners of General de Armée and Men Who Would Be Kings.
Nice
Big one coming up now. Big one coming
Man
up now.
United is still in that bag.
Number 3.
Number 3, Meg or Bolt Action will play Chain of Command.
Bolt Action against Chain of Command.
That could be an interesting one.
Oh my goodness.
Okay, number 2.
Number 2. Oh, this could be interesting as well. Old school versus new. The winner of General de Brigade and Alliant Rampant will play Bruce Quarry Napoleonics.
Wow. Okay, old school.
Bruce Quarry Napoleonics starts with 1,000 votes. Just saying that.
Number
Just
1.
the charts.
Number 1. Black Powder will play To the Strongest or Saga.
Okay, I've only got 2 in my bag now. Next one up is number 7.
Number 7. Sharp Practice or L'Art de la Guerre will play Charles Grant's The War Game.
Okay. Old school.
We're going
new school.
We've got a cracking one.
Last one. I'll tell you what it is. The number is number 5.
Rapid Fire will play Battle Group or By Fire and Sword.
Right. Interesting. Interesting matchup there.
Rapid Fire versus Battle Group would be
that would be an interesting one.
That would be. I'm not writing off By Fire and Sword yet, but
I like the idea of these new kids on the block up against some of the old school traditional ones.
Yeah, we'll see what happens.
When you've whittled it down to the last, the final winner of everything, because obviously this is what we're going towards, isn't it? So everything else. So does that mean we all have to burn all the rules that we've got that aren't that winner and not play them anymore?
Yeah.
That's the way it
definitely.
works.
Yeah.
Okay.
The prize is fuck all. Really.
I tell you what, if Bolt Action and Chain of Command end up going head to head, that would be very interesting.
I'm going to call it. I'm going to say Bolt Action will win because of popularity.
But it's always going to be. I mean, there are certain groups who will vote on block if they see there's a competition going.
Yeah.
But then you've got to kind of think of who my audience are, and whether how they game. Most of the people who listen to my stuff and follow my stuff are older generation doing big games. So will that affect the voting as well? Be interesting to see.
I think that's true. Out of those two rules, I would say that probably bolt action is more played by younger players, fresh out of Warhammer, like Sean, or a Chain of Command is more of an older,
mature,
thinking man, like me, for example.
Yeah.
Awesome.
More distinguished. I think it depends, Ken, also because you have put the poll across quite a few different Facebook groups, haven't you? So that I think that will impact quite a lot because who frequents those groups. So I don't know if it went up on the Plastic Crack.
It did, yeah.
Yeah, and then Hobby Support Group, who we've already mentioned, and all these popular places where people gather, then I think that's going to be a really interesting look.
Didn't put it in a Storm of Steel group, though, did he?
Did I not? I'm always worried about spamming your guys' groups.
No, spam away.
Spam away. Yeah, I don't want to put me votes where they aren't wanted.
No, please do. Stick it in there.
At
least for the next round, anyway.
I will do. And then just to explain for the listeners that after round 2, going into the quarterfinals, it will be the traditional way of working these things out in seeds. So 1 will play 8, 2 will play 7, 3 will play 6, 4 will play 5. The winner going through, and then 1 will play 4, etc. So there are no more draws, and if you really want to, you can work out the ladder of how it will go and who will meet, which I will do at some stage. We're hour and 18 in, and we're just coming up to the end of part 1. So, Sean, have you got a Mexican corner?
You could have prepared me for the Mexican corner. But did you know? Did you know that during the Mexican Revolution, the first constitution was written, and it was a very progressive constitution, far more than most people would imagine for Mexico. So there was universal male suffrage, which I find fascinating. Women's rights were.
I've got suffrage right now. Just listening to you two.
Are you ready to do one of them poo faces for your videos?
But it's something that I think most people don't really appreciate. That Mexico during that period of tumult, is that the right word? And infighting and conflict and war, they managed to free and give the vote to everybody, to every male, which was I thought was fascinating. Are you still awake, guys? Sorry. Oh yeah, you still.
God, I liked it more when you were talking about 40k.
Yeah, I liked it. I liked it when they got abducted by aliens in the last one. Excellent. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a minute. Right, so part 2. Traditionally, we've done this for so long.
Are we back?
We're back. We're back. We never went away in real terms. We were just discussing a bit of intercontinental arsonry.
Is that a word?
I don't know. What is the word?
If not, it should be.
What is the word for arson?
Arson,
yeah. What is the word for doing arson?
Arsonry. To
you an arsoner?
It's not a verb, is it?
Arson. Anyway, this is the bit where we go through the Room 101 entrance and tear them to pieces. the last one after our show at Christmas was Henry Hyde, and he came up with accuracy nerds.
Oh,
I quite like being accurate.
I've got thoughts on this. I'll let Alex go first.
Expand a little because I can't remember. I have listened to Henry's one, but it's been a while since I listened to it.
It was kind of having a go at. He was on one that night. Oh, he was on one.
Yeah, I do remember that.
The famous mud rant.
Yeah.
Bless him. Yeah. He was on about people who were deadly serious about the accuracy of the models and the accuracy of the games, etc. I can certainly see some of the points on that.
Yeah, I strive for accuracy, but I don't expect it in somebody else. I mean, I'd prefer to play a game that is accurate, but at the end of the day, we're pushing toy soldiers about, so you can only have a certain amount of accuracy within these things. And I try. I have certain sacred cows. For example, the First World War. I'm very precious about it. And I don't know if you've ever seen any of my reviews of other sets of rules about the First World War. I'm very, very much into the accuracy of it because it's a period that is kind of thrown together sometimes by rules writers who've read a couple of Wikipedia pages on the First World War and then put 12 figures in every section. It's like, no, that's not how it worked. That's not what they did.
Do you not get most of your information from American podcasts?
Yeah, I mean that is a primary source, and it's probably the best primary source for that. But when it comes to, so I mean, like for example, I've just finished painting a load of French First World War figures, and I've spent the last few nights looking at photographs of uniforms and paintings of uniforms to try to get the most accurate I can and working out what bits and pieces are. So I have a certain level of accuracy that I'm trying to achieve. Nobody will notice it apart from me because they're 15mm, and if you ever see any detail on 15mm stuff from 3 foot away when it's somebody else's figures, but I know it's been done. So personally, I'm happy to have that level of accuracy. If somebody turns up with something that's slightly I don't know. I prefer to play a game where everything looks in inverted commas accurate as accurate as a 15mm figure can look.
But you wouldn't smash the table up if somebody had got the facing colours wrong.
No, certainly would not, and I wouldn't mind, and I don't really care if somebody else wants to do it in their own games. That's up to them. I do it for my stuff, but I know that there's also I've cut corners here and there. However, I wouldn't have a house like a building that's got. I was just painting one recently that's got a Stella Artois advert on the side and have that in rural Russia, for example. I would have a Russian-style house because that's the game we're playing. So when it comes to accuracy, yes, for the most part, but I am happy to let things go as well for the sake of a game. Does that answer your question? It's a fluffy answer.
If somebody turned up with a squadron of My Little Pony cavalry, would that be
we're trying to explain to me that there were German Uhlans from 1914. I'd probably say, could you just not bought some Peter Pig ones? It's not like they don't sell them. I just done a little bit of research. We've said it before. It's that Zen, the Zen diagram. No, the Venn diagram of wargaming. The Zen diagram. It's very different. The Venn diagram of wargaming. It's like are you a historian? Are you a painter? Are you and I solidly come down definitely within the historian part of it, and I'm interested in history, so I want my historical games to be accurate to a certain extent. If somebody on the next table over is playing with a load of grey plastic figures that are proxied in for something else, crack on. I wouldn't do it, but you do it. Don't bother me.
Sean, you were going to slag somebody off? Sorry, give us your opinion. Give us your opinion.
So my most vivid recollection of this, of pedantry, really.
Pedantry.
Of me being...
That's a good word. The pedant's revolt.
Yeah.
You see, sorry, Sean, when I put this on my blog or anywhere, I always put pendant rather than pedant, and then
just to pick the pedants up.
And then the pedants pick up that I've spelt it wrong, and they just don't get it at all.
Would
sorry,
be
sorry,
no. And similar to Alex with the First World War, the American Civil War is one where I would die on a hill defending the accuracy of the uniforms. And I appreciate that you're talking about one of the most drab-looking 19th century conflicts ever. But it is
grey.
It's an undeniable fact. I'm talking more about the cut of the coat as opposed to the colour. That the Confederacy typically wore the shell jacket, which is the short jacket that's stopped at the waist, and the Union would wear the
Bolero style.
Yes. Well, you might say that. I couldn't possibly comment. And the Union would typically wear the sack coat, which was below the waist, wasn't quite a frock coat. But so when the Perrys released that first set of plastic American Civil War figures, which had sack coats and shell jackets mixed in, and I saw people painting a Union unit using both figures or Confederate units using both figures, that really grinded my gears. I would never, ever say to anybody who turned up with a fully painted army and said, look at my army, I would never say to them, well, that's wrong, because that's not my place to do. It's their enjoyment, it's their hobby. So I'm absolutely with Henry on that, and also everything that I echo everything Alex has just said. But my personal axe to grind would be on that point. In other respects, whether it's a Panzer IV whatever letter or a Panzer IV whatever letter, I wouldn't have the faintest idea. So a Panzer IV is a Panzer IV to me. Okay, a long or a short barrel, maybe. But whether it's a F or a H or whatever the designation was, I wouldn't bother. But American Civil War is the one where I would draw my line. But I would never, ever criticize anybody who turned up with an incorrectly coated American Civil War infantryman.
I think everyone has the limits with it, don't they? With the accuracy side of things, I like accuracy, and I like to do my stuff as best I can. But then I'll put up a picture of Prince Eugen. It took me 3 months to finish, and somebody goes, "Oh, you've got the wrong radar type for that particular camouflage scheme."
What I think it is you've mentioned it there, Sean, in that they've released a box of figures which you could perceive as being inaccurate. I think that therein lies the problem. A rather popular plastic figure manufacturer has recently released a set of First World War British figures, and I have a great deal of problem with them because I'm not going to mention them by name, but you probably can work out who it is because there's not that many of them. There's no rifle grenades in the set, not a single one, and they made up a quarter of the platoon. So to me, from a point of view of a figure manufacturer, now somebody painting the uniform incorrectly is a different thing to a figure manufacturer getting the uniform incorrect, because you would have thought that they have done the research in the first place. And somebody, you like you say, at the end of the day, it's your hobby to paint however you want to paint. So if you want to paint your First World War figures in pink, then crack on. But as long as those figures manufacturers are paying attention to the fine details before those things come out, and I think therein lies the problem with the accuracy. Not so much the individual who's painted it, it's the company who's done it before. And to sing their praise as Plastic Soldier Company, I think their first release was, it was a T-34, and there was something wrong with it, and people pointed it out straight away when they first released it. So they recalled all that had been sent out, scrapped them all, remolded it, jigged it and then re-released it. And I think that deserves praise, because instead of just going, "Oh, shut up, you idiots," they've fallen on their sword there and taken it on themselves to do something about it when it's been pointed out to them. So yeah, I think accuracy when it's somebody painting their own stuff doesn't matter. When it's a manufacturer who's got something completely wrong and ignores it despite being told about it, then that's a different thing entirely.
It's a deal breaker, isn't it? Though,
yeah, definitely.
Well, you say that you're paying for them to do the research, aren't you?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
To get it right. And if you make a mistake, sometimes people will go, "Oh, this is wrong or that's wrong on something I've done," and it's the figure itself rather than the painting.
Yeah.
And I always just say I'm the dumb painter. I just paint them.
Yeah.
Simple as that. So that was Henry. My next guest was Martin Kelly from the USA. We talked about big games and Historicon and all that sort of stuff. And his pet hate was overcrowded tables. Now, I am guilty of this on occasion when I've painted loads of figures and I put them all on a table. Oh, and I'm sure everyone has at some stage.
Yep.
But when there's absolutely no room to manoeuvre whatsoever.
There's a balance, isn't there, I think, because and I certainly think the smaller in scale you go, the more important the scenery becomes. But there's got to be a balance, hasn't there, between the figures particularly if you're doing a demonstration game as such, at a show, there's a balance between the number of figures that you have on the table and the scenery to get the overall look. But yeah, the idea of wall-to-wall tanks or no space on the flanks is the typical one, isn't it? Where I remember years and years ago, one of the best display games I ever saw of Blenheim at the Reading show, I think it was. It was wonderful, but from one end of a 24-foot table to the other end of the 24-foot table was just ranks and ranks of infantry and nowhere to move. Now, as a display game, I suppose, a display piece, wasn't a game. As a display piece, that's fine, but for a game, you need space.
Well, if your game's like that, you may as well just move everything to within firing range and roll your dice, hadn't you? Because all they're going to do is just walk forward anyway.
Yeah,
so there's no manoeuvring. Yeah,
and room to deploy as well is quite often a problem with the large games. When you put a load of stuff on at the backing column, you think, I've got a shitload of room here, and then you put a couple of units out in line, and it's like, oh bloody hell, where's anything going to fit?
Where's my guns going now?
oh no! Or you set your guns up, and then you put a unit out in line, and it just covers the front of them, and it's
I suppose that's mitigated a little bit, Ken. Is it? I know I've never been to the Wargames Holiday Centre or played on that sort of setup where you've got 3 separate tables, where you've got the reserve tables and then the main action table. Is that mitigated a little bit by?
It gives you a lot more room, and it gives you a lot of more space to deploy in, because you deploy in further back. You will normally have 2 gaming tables in the middle and then reserve tables on the back.
Yeah.
So you've got more. Your stuff comes on the reserve table, and then you've got time to put it how you want it before you move it onto the actual gaming table. And sometimes the skill is in getting that right before you go forward.
Yes.
So yeah, having depth as well as width, young lady, is very important.
Is that similar to girth?
It is. Yes.
Just so clear.
Only less trouble for us. Right. The next one, my good mate Steve Shan, he put forward one of my absolute pet hates, and I'm so glad he said it: table clutter.
In what? Terrain or tokens? So two
just
are very different.
Shit. Fucking
Diet Coke
coffee.
cans.
Oh, just stuff.
Cans.
Oh, yeah. Try and keep that crap
tokens,
off the table if you can.
Half-read copies of Readers' Wives. It's just constant.
Yeah, I'm very much against tokens on tables. I don't like a lot of tokens. Or if a game does have tokens, try to make them look as to match the game as much as possible. Like casualties and things. But yeah, stuff like having empty cans and crisp packets and stuff like that all over the table. Nah.
If it's functional and part of the game, fair enough.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
If it's some random copy of the Daily Mirror, then
get it off the table.
Shocking.
Yeah, it's a real it's a bugbear for me, especially at the club. At my club, people will have cans of pop on the table, and you're just waiting for that table to get knocked, and then it spills over the mat.
That's it, isn't it? Just one clumsy hand. And it's
over. So not only doesn't it look very good, but it's also hazardous to that person's health. Actually, my reaction would be somewhat violent. It's even lots of dice just scattered all over the table where people have thrown the dice. Gather the dice up and put them together to one side. Don't leave them just scattered all over the place.
I don't like that at all. That's why I use dice trays these days.
Yeah, dice trays are perfect, aren't they?
But the thing is, what I do is when I take games down to the club and I get quite a few people playing, I hand out the dice trays and I put them, 20 dice in or whatever I think they'll need. And people don't roll them into the dice tray; they just use them to hold the dice.
Yeah.
It's like what?
All the time.
Roll it next to the dice tray.
Yeah.
You need like a little electric fence around it so you can't get the hands.
It's I don't like having dice everywhere. If somebody else rolled them, I'll quickly tidy them up.
You see some games at shows that are absolutely fantastic, and they've clearly spent thousands of pounds on the train, and it's just covered in fast play sheets and casualty rosters and stuff. And it's like, I can't see all this brilliant table that you've done.
At a club game, that's fine because you're using them. But yes, I think on a display table, have a separate table for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Have either of you played To the Strongest or For King and Parliament by Simon Miller?
I haven't played. I've won a copy. Of To the Strongest.
I really like both sets of rules, particularly because it's the gridded element to it. I'm a big fan of the grids.
You're a grid man.
I am a grid man, but
I like grids as well.
Yeah,
there's no argument with grids, is there?
No, exactly. And it doesn't have to look like a grid. You can make the table look really very nice, and the grid markings can be very unobtrusive. However, with those games,
let me just say, people always say, if you move diagonally, then you're moving twice. You're not actually, because it's a Pythagorean. It's a 1.42 is how far you're moving.
So I think you'll find.
So if your square is 1 across the top and 1 down the side, like 1 metre, across the middle is 1.42, actually. You will find.
Yeah. And there ends the Open University Level 1 Beginner's Maths.
So my point about those rules, the great mechanics and quite groundbreaking in some aspects. However, when I've seen the games put on at shows, those playing cards that they stack behind the units just really pulls me out of that immersion of the game. They're only on for a certain amount of time. They pull them away, I think, at the end of the turn or whatever. But that you do see unit after unit after unit with a pile of cards behind it. And it just takes away the immersion from me. I think you can play a variant where you use a D10. So I think that probably works better from an aesthetic point of view.
I was thinking about this the other day. I don't like games that use normal playing cards as part of the mechanic, and there's a lot of games that do. Now, I've played games that I do enjoy that use it, of course, but in general, I don't like it because exactly what you just said there. It takes me out of the game. Yeah. I'd prefer to have, even if it's just like a set of cards that just have 1 to 10 on it, but done in a style that suits the game. Yeah. Not 1 to Jack, Queen, King, just a typical set of, or for example, if that one, for example, I would probably have a set of cards produced that look like they're from the 16th century.
Yeah.
So it's keeping you within the idea of the game. It's something that just takes me out. Yeah, the theme of it, and it's just something that takes me out, and I don't like using them. I'd rather have a deck of cards that fits that the period. So yeah, that takes me out as well.
Yeah.
I wonder if you could use the serial killer top trumps that I've got. Could that work?
I'd love to see the categories for that.
Have you not seen it? It's awesome. Jeffrey Dahmer.
Laugh a minute, that would be, wouldn't it? After a dinner party.
After a few drinks, it is. But I'm pretty sure you'd lose your job. But it's real. It's real. They are serial killer top trumps are real.
Can't believe it.
Yeah, get that one. George Nafziger, bless him, who came on. He put in someone in moans and cries when they roll a 1.
What are the chances of that?
I think we all do, and I think everybody punches the air when they roll a 6, if you need a 6 or if you need a 1. But yeah, I think I listened. I enjoyed the George Nafziger one because it was interesting to hear his take on things, because you never hear of him on anything apart from his books.
I didn't know he was alive.
No, I didn't.
Well, to be fair, that's what he said to me. He said, "Most people think I'm dead." He was a lovely, lovely guy. Very, very old school. Very, very old school. But
I really came across in the interview. I really enjoyed it. It was a nice. It was a nice, interesting one.
I'm so glad he did it. You know when you send an email off going, never going to hear.
Never going to happen. Yeah.
Hi Ken, it's George here. Look, let's come on the show.
Oh God, I've got to think of some questions now.
I think in that vein, as opposed to the rolling of the 1, it's more people who will slap dice across the table in temper, and I've seen and played with people who will do that. And again, there's degrees, aren't there? So somebody who bemoans rolling a 1 in a jovial manner, say, "Oh, my bloody bad luck again."
Yeah,
that's fine. You have a laugh together about it. But somebody who's really pissed off, then I think they're probably taking the game a bit too seriously.
Yeah, having an instant reaction that is negative or positive, but then quickly moving on from it is fine. Because you do, you're in the moment, and it's like, "Oh shit," or "Yay!" But somebody 2 turns later, it's going, "Oh, if I'd not rolled that 1, it's like, move on, come on."
My philosophy is that, and I'm sure you're both the same, that, and I mentioned it earlier. Actually, it's the most important thing is the people you play with. But a game is a social contract, and I believe that I've got a responsibility to try and make the other person enjoy the game as much as the other way around. If I'm throwing my dice around in bad temper or swearing because I've rolled a 1, then how does the other person feel about that? They're going to feel pretty shitty themselves, aren't they? And a little bit awkward about it. So, and I've been in that situation, and I think once or twice I've done it myself, where my poor dice rolling has led to me being frustrated, and usually it's something else actually outside of the game or that's happened in the week that's put me in a bad mood, and then my dice don't go the way I want, and so I think once or twice I've fallen into that trap myself. So I'm not claiming to be all pious about it, but it is a social contract, and we have responsibility towards the other person to make sure they enjoy the game as much as we do.
Sometimes your opponent rolling shit dice constantly, or you rolling shit dice constantly, becomes part of the entertainment.
Have a laugh about it.
It's just no. I mean, I'll tend to slam my head into the table, which is quite dangerous with 96-figure pike blocks around.
Oh my God!
come back up with them. But yeah, it is. I think it's just making a joke of it. Somebody is losing, and just making them feel still part of the game, even though. And then, the next, if you're umpiring a game, for example, I've done that quite a few times at the club. And if somebody is rolling shit dice, because it does happen, just go, oh, come on, this one's going to be for you this time. Just big them up a little bit beforehand,
exactly.
So they don't feel so bad if it is done. And like you say, it's a social contract. You're there to have fun. They're there to have fun. It's not an 800-member tournament game of 40k, which I'm sure you'll be playing soon enough anyway, Sean.
Oh, I'm sure. I'll be there, mate.
You'll be telling us all about your trips to the Bug Cafe or whatever it is. Bugman's Bar. Yeah. I know bits of it because my lad does a bit of 40k.
It's just great breakfast, mate. I mean, it's one of the best breakfasts you'll ever get.
I work in the Yorkshire Dales, mate, and it isn't. It really
No struggle.
I could take you to 1,000 farm shops who have better breakfast.
Yeah, I'm sure.
You normally eating the thing that you were petting in the petting zoo the day before. Paul Thompson of Early War Miniatures, lovely guy, Paul.
That was great.
That was brilliant. Yeah, really enjoyed that one.
Really good episode. That was his stories of electronic submarines and firing torpedoes. Really good.
Amazing.
And meeting the former U-boat commander was very good. But he came up with dice droppers, and I have seen this. I didn't really start getting annoyed about it until Paul mentioned it, to be fair. But these people who just kind of drop the dice from 0 inches, and they've checked it in the hand before it and then drop it.
Yeah, a friend of mine used to do this when we were kids, when we were 13, 14, and we were, that's back when I was playing 40k, and he would literally get the dice on the number he wanted and just put it on the table.
Yeah.
I was 6 again, Paul. Oh, that's amazing, isn't it? And I don't think I can't remember if I've seen anyone doing it since being an adult, but yes, I would.
Yeah.
I've
never seen anyone
after the second one. I did insist that
I've never seen anyone doing it obviously like that, but I've seen people kind of really drop the dice from a very, very low height, and I would imagine that will be in an attempt to increase the percentages rather than guarantee. But
have you ever seen people do it's very similar and related to the drop is like the little flip, so it's almost out the back of the hand as though the dice won't roll, it'll just land on the face. And
yes, I have seen that on occasion.
Is that like that knobhead who puts the salt on the steak? Have you not seen that?
Dice Bay. Yeah.
Salt Bay or whatever it's called.
Yeah, Salt Bay. Dice Bay.
Yeah, do a Dice Bay.
No, I'm not. But it's sort of almost out the back, like a nonchalant flick of the wrist.
That's right,
and the dice just sort of lands on one face and doesn't. It's got to roll, hasn't it? You've got to shake it and roll it.
But it can't roll like a round dice where it doesn't stop.
Or scatter figures all over the place.
Yeah.
Or weighted dice.
Or weighted
dice. Well, certainly not those ones that element found in the bottom of the toilet. If they try and sell you 2 weighted dice, people who have a hand, say 10 dice, and just scatter them across the table to the 4 corners.
That is a bit annoying. Again, that goes back to having dice trays.
Yeah, there's a whole etiquette around dice rolling, isn't there?
Yeah.
In fact, we could do an entire podcast on it.
I think we could.
Probably could.
Yeah, probably could.
That'll be Christmas's version.
Yeah, Christmas dice podcast. Looking, people are turning off already. We're not even recording it. Pete Berry. I have to say, Pete, well done. Units where all figures are doing something different.
Yeah. Well,
and I didn't really think about this until he said that you have a drill manual for a reason, so that you're all doing the same thing when you're loading or whatever. And so when you've got people firing and loading next to each other, would it work that way? I don't know.
Well,
I'm guilty of it. I'm guilty of it.
You're talking about rank and flank units there as opposed to World War II or something, because obviously you want diversity there. But
so it really depends on the period, I think.
Yeah, you've got rank and flank units of you, Ken, where people are doing stuff differently.
Oh yeah, because I like to have that diorama feel on each of my bases. So, but then once you've gone from a norm, you would have a system where you would rank fire or fire in platoons, but eventually you would get to the stage where it would be fire at will.
Yeah,
and then everybody else would be doing something, and you would be firing at your own speed.
I think yes, it depends on what point in the battle, and also I like those marching columns where everybody's doing something slightly different, because when you're marching in column, you're not all marching in perfect step. You would, especially on a battlefield when there's all sorts of stuff going off around you, you would just be walking forward at a regular pace, but trying to keep up with your mates and also hanging onto your rifle or your musket or whatever. But I get what he means. Yes, I think depending on the period.
I think he was very much coming from English Civil War, where he'd done a lot of reenactment, and they have that list of orders: load your Python and split your spontoon and whatever it is they do.
Python. I was wondering where we were going.
Pampas grass, mate. Anyway,
but on that point though, so after they give fire orders, but once they've pulled the trigger, then all the men are going to be in slightly different positions, aren't they? And so I think a good example.
But then that's why you have a sergeant at arms shouting out that everybody load, everybody aim, everybody fire.
But I wasn't there. I wasn't there, so I don't know for certain. But I'm fairly sure they weren't like synchronized swimmers in how they leveled the musket and primed the pan or whatever, rammed the.
No, there's always going to be somebody who's either slower or faster, isn't there?
Yeah, so that gives you that variance, doesn't it? I think.
And then once again, a battlefield, there's a lot going off, so
yes, exactly. Yeah,
you're going to be reacting to stuff like that.
There's always going to be somebody running out to get the ramrod back.
I used to always like the pictures on the back of Wargames Illustrated of the Elite Miniatures adverts, where there are these 30, 36 figure units, 48 figure units, Austrian Napoleonic battalions, where there was variance in even a marching unit, as you say, Alex. There might be somebody wiping the brow, or they've got their musket on the other side, or just slightly out of step with the rest. I used to love the look of those, and I think it was Pete Morby who used to paint them as well. They were just beautiful. They were. So I can't quite agree with that.
I've got a unit where it's a American War of Independence Grenadier Battalion, British Grenadier Battalion, 48 figures, and at one end they're all firing, and then the guys next to them are at the ready to fire, and then as you go down the line, they're in the various stages of loading.
Right.
That still makes me moist. That unit. I do like that one.
I've put a picture up of that because that sounds lovely.
Yeah, it is. It's in a box under this table somewhere. So nice one, Pete. Thanks very much for that. And the last one, Mark Hydes, was on just last week. Mark was on, and this didn't. Yeah, this didn't annoy me until Mark said it, and now I can't stop thinking about it. And then I need to stop this feature. It's making me an angry young man. Rules that cost more than the figures you need.
Oh, that's an interesting one. Yeah.
So, and was it that? I can't. Well, Black Powder. Going back to one of my favourite sets of rules, 40 quid or whatever it is, and then it's that wishy-washy that you have to buy another 25 or 30 quid for the period you actually want to play. And then it still says in there you can make stuff if you want. I've just paid 65 quid. It should be right.
But don't forget the limited edition with the gold leaf pages. So that was about 3 times as much as the ordinary version.
And it's not so bad. I suppose it's not so bad with that. But when you have like a skirmish set of rules that costs 30 quid, and it's designed for 6 figures or 10 figures or something like that,
Okay, I'm going to be slightly controversial on this one and say
Controversial.
I think controversial, yeah. On this podcast, I don't mind paying quite a bit of money for rules. I'm happy to pay 30 quid for a set of rules. What I don't like is like you said, codex creep, where you have to buy a set of rules. There's another set of rules that will remain nameless, where there are no army list whatsoever in it. So you have to buy a campaign rule book as well, on top of the rule book you just bought. I think all rules should come with at least 2 armies that you can put on the table and play with for that particular period what they cover, and maybe a couple of scenarios. Even one scenario is good enough. Just a scenario that has 2 armies that you can play straight away, and just then you can go from there. Stuff where you have to buy extra books on top of it to play the game, that annoys me. But I don't mind paying 20, 30, even up to 40 quid for a set of rules, because what I think like this is, and I know they're short runs, so this is why they have to be expensive anyway. So it's just a point of view of a business point of view. But I feel that a set of rules is something, if you're using it, you go back to it all the time. And the my sets of rules, the ones I use the most, I've read several times. There's not that many books that I own that I've paid 20 quid for that I've read more than once. So I feel I'm getting, as a reader, I'm getting my money's worth because I've read it 3, 4, 5. I'm referring to it in games. It's a tool. A rule book is a tool.
Yeah.
And I think, if you're using it, then I don't begrudge paying a lot of money for it. I'd say a lot of money. I mean, 30 or 40 quid.
And I can see that with, let's take O Group as an example, one that we're both familiar with, that has rules all the way through it. And it's got some pictures in it, but not a massive amount. And then it's got army lists at the back, and
it has a scenario. It has 4 1944 army lists. So you can basically make your own. You've got a scenario built into it. So, you got everything you need there within that rule set. And it's 30 quid.
Yeah. And I think that is decent value, because I'm paying for the content there. Whereas some of the glossy, bigger sets of rules, the actual rule content is 8 pages. And then, there's 20 pages on painting a figure, and which I get. Some people like that. Some people I don't, but I don't begrudge other people having it. But the contents of the rules are very minimal compared to everything else that's in the book. And as you say, some of the books you need to buy another 20 or 30 quid to get a theatre of conflict book that then enables you to play that period. And it's a big investment, especially for
for a new player or a young kid or something like that, when they've only got a certain amount of pocket money. I mean, if you buy, let's just say, for example, pulling it out of my ass, there's a World War II rule book that has the rules in it, but doesn't tell you how to put together a force. Now, if that World War II rule book had a 1944 American and German typical force at the back of it, that would make me a lot happier than having to go and buy a Normandy supplement to play the game that you want to play. It's like, well, I've already bought the rules. Why am I paying for something extra? And as you say, with O Group, it does it. You've got 4 armies, 1944 armies, detailed at the back. You've also got a scenario. Perfect. Because then you can go down your own route, and you can also play a scenario that's already set up for you. And it's not a massive outlay, I don't think, for a rules writer.
No. I appreciate people need to make the money from it, but I want the content to come with it. And I think O Group has got it right. I think there's what you need in there, and there's very little filler.
Yeah,
there isn't 87 pictures of Dave Brown's Sherman Mark IV to pad it out.
It does what it says on the tin.
It does what it says on the tin.
I think from my point of view, there's a couple of things. One is the amount of time it takes to write and playtest a set of rules isn't. It's an investment from the rules writer. However, that then it has to be reflected, I suppose, in the quality of the product that they're selling to you, as in the physical quality. So some of a rule set like Black Powder, let's go with Black Powder or Hail Seas or that sort of genre. They're almost coffee table books, aren't they? As you say, Ken, the actual rules content is minimal. Now, whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know, because they're clearly a popular set of rules. And do they need anything more in there? But then you might say, well, they could be released in a 20-page pamphlet as opposed to a big hardback book, which is a coffee table book full of wargaming pornography, essentially.
Yeah.
It's there to ogle at and aspire to, I suppose. And then the other part being, okay, if you pay £30 for a set of rules that you're happy with as a rule set, but not particularly happy on the cost, look how many times you play that game. If you play 100 games of that, then value for money for that £30 investment is pretty good. If you only play it once, then it's not a very good investment.
Or if you sling it in the bin going, I don't like
even playing it, yeah.
Shit, this
yeah, so it's a tricky one for me, that. I've my experience, I suppose, with rules and rules writing and rules publications is through Peter Pigg and the rules Martin puts out there, and he often gets criticised, or there's often criticism of the quality of the actual book itself, regardless of the rules, the proofreading or just how they're written, often gets fed back as not being great. But the actual game that they give, once you've got the hang of them, in my opinion, is good. But their rules are 15, 16 quid a pop. So
is that a level of expectation that's coming from these coffee table books, though? Are people expecting that as a standard now, to have these huge tomes?
Well, it goes all the way back to thingy, doesn't it? Warhammer, is it Warhammer 2nd edition? I think that was the first hardcover version of it, Warhammer Fantasy Battle, and that is a massive coffee table book. It's full of wargaming pornography. It's from a nostalgic point of view, it's a fantastic piece of work. But it is absolutely full of rules, and there are scenarios in there. Most of the rules are like individual animal types, like giant slugs and unicorns and all the different stats and
all
stuff.
My favourites.
80 pages on magic and stuff like that. But there are rules, and it is using it, but it is still also a coffee table book that you can just sit and look through and read. Because I enjoy reading rules. I like reading them. I like the process of reading them, especially if they're well written and if they're well illustrated as well. So I come somewhere in the middle. I like but something with nice pictures as much as, and also the little bit of fluff here and there. But I also ask as well for, like I said, those simple things of just having a scenario or at least a generic army list. And Peter Pigg do that. Square Bashing has it. You do have an army book for Square Bashing separately to the rules. Same with PBI. But in both PBI and in Square Bashing, there are scenarios already written for you, and a couple of example armies. So you can just get stuff on the table straight away, and that's what I expect to see at the minimum in a set of rules.
Awesome.
Rest of it, I don't mind so much. Rest of it, I don't mind a bit of fluff, and I don't mind photos and stuff. But yeah, I think you have to have those as minimum.
And just before we move on to Ask Our Nora and the questions, I just thought I'd bring up one of the hot topics in the hobby that was going around recently, and this is Midwinter Minis. I think Alex has done a response video to this, and this.
No, I haven't bothered.
Have you not?
No, I mentioned it. Other people have done them. Couldn't be bothered.
It was something about people who play Lancastrians in the War of the Roses being Nazis.
Oh yeah, that one. Yeah. That was a long run.
Well, I'm sure you're completely on board with that. Yeah, but
100%.
I found that fascinating. I mean, it's absolutely died a death now. there was no response came out from Midwinter Minis themselves. But I found it a fascinating little episode, to be honest. Mainly because I follow the Midwinter Minis YouTube channel. I think it's a great channel, and there's some great painting tips on there. There's one or two little bits of controversies that I won't go into just around the channel, which I think possibly fueled the backlash against him.
Right.
They didn't really have much to do with what he was talking about, to be fair.
No.
Or anything to do with it. In fact, that was a personal thing, but yeah, people dragged it out as a stick to beat him with. It's like, come on.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I thought that was unfair. I do think the video was slightly misjudged, particularly in the sense that the episode was sponsored by World of Warships, which is World War II.
Oh, that was amusing. That was amusing.
Yeah, halfway through. You can play anything. It could be a Japanese
kamikaze
battleship if you like, because they didn't do anything bad in the Second World War, did they?
Yeah. And ultimately, I think it was just ignorance on his part of the historical side of the hobby. He's clearly not.
It was very clumsy,
very well versed,
because it was very much about bolt action, and it was very much around one particular thing, which was bolt action. What got up my nose is the fact that his partner on the channel, I don't know her name, but
Hetty.
She'd actually been invited. Hetty, is it? She'd been invited to the Women in Wargaming panel at Salute, which is a historical wargaming show.
Yeah.
Now, why they didn't stop any of the millions of historical wargamers at Salute and ask them what their opinion of this was, I don't know. But literally, I think the video before it was like my experience at Salute kind of video. Then it came out with this nonsense clickbait. Let's go back to clickbait that we were talking about earlier. To be fair, pure and simple, that's what it was, and a very clumsy attempt at clickbait as well. And yeah, I just thought you were literally with 5,000 historical wargamers for the most part at Salute. You could have stopped any one of them. And said, talked to them about it and said, there was plenty of World War II tables there that they could have just stopped and said, what's the deal with playing the bad guys? How do you feel about it? Just dropped in a few different interviews, few different voices of people who actually do it, and get their take on it. Well, no matter where you sit in the argument, getting other voices is the most important thing, I think, in that particular aspect.
They could have interviewed me, and I would have said, oh, "I'm sorry, I've got to go off and walk Blondie, my dog."
I'm glad you said Blondie. Then I wondered where that was going. Dan Buster reference.
Yeah.
Oh, go on. I didn't use that one.
How great would it have been to go and approach one of the best advocates for the hobby, Rich Clark and Nick Skinner?
Yeah, exactly.
At that show.
Exactly.
Because I think that would have absolutely disavowed them of any ideas about people being far right Nazi goose stepping.
Yeah, absolutely. That was my thoughts about it. I don't think anybody else. I'm sure somebody else thought to it. Obviously, not just me, but I just noticed that it was either like the video before or a couple of videos before it was her talking about her experiences on the Women of Wargaming, and you are literally at the premier biggest historical wargaming event, and then two videos later, you are you're, whether intentionally or not, you are attacking the historical wargaming crowd. I saw plenty of people defending them, saying, "Oh, well, they weren't really saying that." So, well, what video were you watching? Because that's not the impression I got from it.
No, I think they were pretty much you're pretty much hitting the nail on the head there. That it was a very thinly veiled, if veiled at all, attack on anybody who would wish to play historical war games.
Yeah. And disappointing, clumsy and disappointing, I thought.
Yeah.
That was my odds. But no, I didn't do a response to it because I couldn't be bothered. A lot of other people had done it, and what else am I going to say that everybody
Dom
else
did
has
quite
already
a good
did
one,
anyway?
didn't he?
Yeah.
Dom
He did,
quite,
yeah.
that's
He
quite
did.
funny.
That's Boots on the Table. That is, if you're
Mm-hmm.
listening, you don't know his channel.
Yeah, I think whatever it is, in life, there is people who are people you don't want to associate with, but it doesn't. There are people who play wargaming who pick the SS because they get a +1.
Yeah.
Because they're allegedly better troops and they've got better equipment. There'll be people out there who play the SS because they might go that way politically, but it doesn't mean that the rest of the historical wargaming society are bad. People still get building work done, but we've had Fred West, so you don't stick everyone in the same bloody thing, do you?
Yeah,
I
not every
fancy
GP is Harold Shipman.
I fancy getting an extension. Oh, I'm not doing it in case they kill 16 women or whatever.
And the irony is that a lot of that channel is about painting Space Marines, and it's possibly the most fascistic lore background for a science fiction universe you could ever come across. So,
my other problem is that he has got a massive reach as well. It's a huge channel.
Oh, it's huge.
I can't remember. It's nearly 500,000 subscribers or something like that. Close to, at least, isn't it? Or 1/3 at least. And you just think that would have been a really good chance to highlight the historical part of the hobby without having to go down a clickbaity title, clumsy way, but just by talking to some other historical wargamers. It'd have been so simple. And like you say, Rich and Nick were both there. Well, Nick wasn't at Salute, I don't think. No, he wasn't. But Rich was certainly there, and he would have been a perfect advocate and a great ambassador for the hobby, as he is anyway.
Yeah.
Wasted chance.
Well, there we go. So, Burtis Garden for summer holidays, lads?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Yeah, only if you dress up.
Well,
I'm strapping on my armband as we speak.
There's enough leather coming to my front door at the moment, anyway. So I'll borrow some of that. Oh, I look like Judas Priest on a day off. Right. We'll take another break here, and then we'll go on to our final section of Ask Our Nora. The new program has 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 countdown. I keep feeling like I'm on Dusty Bin.
Very slow though, isn't it? 5, 4, 3.
I know. Look, what you could have won was Bullseye,
Ted Rogers,
wasn't it?
Yeah, Ted Rogers, isn't it? On
Ted Rogers 3, 2, 1. Spin,
yeah. I used to do it that quick, and you always just try and copy it at school, and you'd always get the 2 fingers wrong just as the maths teacher walked in. Oh. Riley, what are you doing? Dusty Bin, sir. Dusty Bin.
Stupid boy.
Oh, I don't watch that. It's on ITV. Common people watch ITV. Anyway, so Midwinter Minis. People who play Leeds United in Subbuteo are not Nazis. Let's get that completely clear now. Right. So, Ask Our Nora. We get questions from our legion of fans, all 3 of them.
How long is this going on for?
82 hours.
Make advantage of it, Alex. We're out the basement. We've got fresh air. Let's drag this out as long as we can.
It's kind of fresh, isn't it? Only with Ken breaking wind. Cuts it with a knife.
Right. John Sowerby.
Hello, John.
Facebook.
Hi, John.
Hello, John. What rule set, scale, or historical period have you tried and then hastily retreated from it as a bad job, and why?
Oh my God!
Silence in the room. I'm trying to think of anything.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something actually. I don't think there's anything that I've hastily retreated from because I've either read them and not liked them, so never got them on the table. I bought a lot of rules that I've never played because I mentioned it, I like playing rules, but I don't think there's anything where I've just gathered everything together and then just got bin it.
No, I've still got the 10mm Malburian stuff was probably the one that I'd had hanging around for 15 plus years. I never did anything with until last year, but I've started cracking through those now.
Right.
And I haven't got anything that I've bought. It's been a failed project, and then I've sold it on. I've always carried on with stuff, or gone back to it over the years and dabbled a bit here and there.
I've gathered stuff together and then played it and then sold it on, but it hasn't been like an instant. Like, say, for example, Infamy. I bought that. I bought loads of 15mm Celts and Romans, played quite a few games of it, enjoyed it, but then kind of thought, this is not really for me. It's not really a period I particularly enjoy. Enjoyed the games, but then sold it on to somebody. But I got something out of it. I didn't just buy it, play one game, and then bin it. I certainly explored the game as much as I wanted to. So that's probably the most latest one. But yeah, it's not really something that I do, to be honest. I'm not so much a hobby magpie like that, as we've discussed in the past anyway.
Sean, have you epically failed?
Many times. Are you on about wargaming?
Yeah, space.
Sorry.
Yeah, space hedgehogs.
I'll go back to space hedgehogs. No, I was just wondering if either of you have any experience of collecting figures for a particular rule set, then put it on for a group of friends, and then had a bad reaction from your group of friends that has then tainted your opinion towards the whole project. Because that's happened to me fairly recently. I won't say which rule set it was, but
40k.
Stop coming back to that. But there was a particularly bad reaction from one player in particular to this game that I'd been building for 6 months or more to put it on at the club, and then umpired the game. And then a particularly bad reaction from one of the players just soured the whole project for me. Then I thought, I haven't got the willpower to play it again, or put it. It's just left such a bad taste in my mouth.
Try it again with a different set of players.
Yeah. I mean, that is the obvious reaction, I suppose. But I do tend to wear my heart on my sleeve a lot with these things, and you get wounded. I didn't run off and cry and or anything, but it definitely wounded me after all the effort that I put in to produce this one game. But as suppose an individual,
that's that social contract you were talking about earlier, isn't it?
Yeah, no, exactly, and it's why I buy into it so much as an idea and a concept. But regarding an individual set of rules, no, I can't think that I've ever ran away from.
I've certainly bought into a period, played a set of rules and ditched them because they're crap.
Yeah.
But then I've played the same period with another set of rules.
Yeah.
It's not the project that's gone out of the window or the figures that have gone out of the window. It's the rule set.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm as you know, I'm very specific about the periods that I play and like. I'm also quite specific about the rules that I like as well, which I'm sure we all are. But so I it's like I've got a big collection of Second World War stuff, which I can turn into using for anything. So I could play PBI with it. I could play O Group. I could play, if I wanted to, I could play Flames of War with the stuff I've got. Don't want to, but so for me, it's not like I'm building up a big collection of something to play and then throw it away, because I've already, more like you just said there, Ken, it's probably the rules themselves that would probably get binned off before the figures did, because I've already got the figures and they are multi-purpose for that particular, make sure they're multi-purpose. So I don't base for a particular set of rules. I base for what I want. So that you can just use them anywhere you want to. And so I can't remember the last time I did it where I built up a big. I've got a DBA army of the Wallachians, which I have never put on the table, and the only reason I got it is because of Vlad the Impaler. and I wanted the zone of control. The zone of control is actually a pile of skulls. So, and the encampment is a load of impaled bodies. So
nice.
That's literally the only reason I wanted it. But that wasn't.
Were you going through a difficult time when you were painting that?
Very much so. Divorce number 3.
Yeah.
But it was. But that again, it's a DBA army, so it's 48 figures. So it's hardly a massive investment. You know what I mean? It's like I've just painted 45 Frenchmen for a platoon, so done that in a week. So it wasn't like half a year spent doing something that I've never used. It's just something I've never used. Yeah. So
you need to do a video. It's a great game, but somebody's got to play Vlad the Impaler.
Nobody wants to play Vlad apart from me.
Chucking a few skulls, chucking a bit of blood dripping down the screen. Oh, I tell you, mate, your channel would go through the roof.
They'd love it.
Go through the roof.
And then also with a thumbnail of me gurning.
Yeah.
And pointing.
Mid-poo.
I wish I'd screenshotted that
then. I'll repeat it at Partisan for you, mate, if you want. Dear me. I will stay away from some historical periods. I've hankered to do Crimean for years, but as I said before, the Russians have still got flintlock muskets, so the British and French just stand outside of range and wave and then load their whatever they've got, fire it off. So yeah, very boring. And Dark Ages, I know you can't say that anymore, but I'm 55. I'm not changing my mind now. Dark Ages, I never got into it. Don't know. Early medieval. 2 small battles, Vikings cutting people's heads off.
Well, you see, again, from an archaeological point of view, I've always been interested in the Vikings, and I have had Viking armies in the past, 28 and 15 mil. But I, sold them off because I just never played. It's more interesting to me from an archaeological point of view than a warfare point of view, because I don't think those battles are particularly interesting. 2 lines of people just fighting it out in the centre until one breaks. But other people like it. But yeah, they're not periods where I bought into and then sold off.
It's all right, but somebody's got to play the Vikings.
That said, actually, no, that's just sparked a Dux Britanniarum.
Oh, yes.
I've played a couple of games with Jeremy Short when he first set up Virtual Lard, which was during the lockdown, and I played some games of Dux. Really, really enjoyed it. Oh, it's a fantastic game. Spent 70 quid on the rules and the supplements and the cards. Then it calmed down, and I realised that I was never going to buy any figures for it. I was never going to do anything with it, so I just sold it on. Great game, So, but I just had a massive, while we were playing the game, I was actually buying the rules. Because I just went over to 2 Fat Lardies and got the rules and stuff. But then, a couple of weeks later, I just thought, why did I do that? I'm never going to play this. So somebody else has got it now.
Yeah. Moving on to George Brews on Facebook, and we've kind of covered it a little bit. George has asked, what period of time do you have no interest in wargaming, even though it would be very easy to do? And what period do you love to wargame, but it would be really hard to do? Well, I've already said Dark Ages for me. I've just got no interest in it whatsoever. Is it called pre-medieval now? Is that what they call it?
No, it's just early medieval.
Why is that? What's wrong with Dark Ages?
Right. Dark Ages.
I'm an old man. I can't stand
do you want me to
these
explain
things
it to
changing. Yes, please.
Right. Dark Ages is a term.
Garlics.
It was a term that is used because early scholars, the 18th, 19th century, when they started looking at history and archaeology, they saw that the Greeks and the Romans were the classical periods of civilization. And then once those civilizations fell, inverted commas, Europe in particular went into a period of dark ages, the Dark Ages, because there was very little writing, there was very little, the Roman ruins fell. The Saxons, for example, didn't live in Roman ruins, they lived away from them because they thought they were haunted. They started living in Grubenhausen. However, in the modern period, we have discovered more and more archaeology and understand those periods more, the early medieval more, and we realised that they were actually incredible craftsmen. They were incredibly high societies across Europe that were operating, and it wasn't just a case of you've got these classical civilization where everybody knows loads of stuff. They're all philosophers, they're all poets, they're all scientists. Then all of a sudden, there's nothing until the Enlightenment. We know a lot more about it. So this is why it's not called the Dark Ages anymore, because it doesn't apply in the way that those early scholars applied it to that period of history. And here endeth the lesson.
Thank you. I obviously missed that email.
Well, I'm an archaeologist by trade, so I know this stuff.
Yeah, no, I'll give you that. I'll give you that.
But if you said the Dark Ages, most people know what you mean.
Yeah, exactly.
But
nobody's around from the Dark Ages to complain, are they?
No, they're certainly not.
Nobody's rising from the grave going, you know
Absolutely.
what, I'm offended. I'm offended by being called Dark Ages. And a period I'd love to wargame, but it would be really hard to. I have to say, I'd love to do 28mm Napoleonics, but I've got 9,000 15mm Napoleonics. So to do 28mm.
Yeah, I agree. I think just the painting of them. 15mm is good for me because we go back to that accuracy thing. You can ignore a lot of stuff on 15mm. Especially when it comes to things like Napoleonics, and that is a rabbit hole you can go down, isn't it? A huge rabbit hole.
Most of it. All this behind me is 15mm Napoleonics. There's bloody thousands of them.
I've seen them in the flesh. They're fantastic. Really good.
Sure.
Well, no period that I wouldn't game or collect, to be honest, from biblical through to modern day, to be honest. And I've done most of them over the years. But I suppose that a period I'd like to game but would be too difficult is a period I've gamed for many years, but I'm not sure there's enough years left in this old body for me to fulfill the idea. Is I would love a huge collection of, and I may have said this before, a huge collection of 28mm Dixon ACW. They were the first figures that I played with as a proper war game, I suppose, at the Stoke Club, owned by some other members. But these huge games on, I think it was 12x6 or 14x6 table, just full of Dixon figures on handmade scenery and terrain, just really fills me full of that nostalgia. Gives me that nostalgia kick, and as I enter my later years, I'd love to recreate that, but it's unlikely to happen. I mean, the figures alone cost close on £2 a figure now.
Jeez, yeah.
And which is nothing compared to 40k. I appreciate you paying £3-4 a figure.
I was going to say, you paid 800 quid for 4 figures, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I mean, you certainly pay over £100 for one figure. That's no joke.
Wow. You're talking to 2 Yorkshiremen, don't you?
Oh,
don't say things like that. You'll kill us both.
200 quid?
But, maybe...
How much?
Maybe I really ought to take a leaf out of your book, Ken, when you do your soapbox bit around big games. As you don't do it all at once, you do it bit by bit, and a case of buying the odd bit here and there and starting with it. But I don't know, maybe. And a follow-up question from George.
What's the most reckless head first you've jumped into a project? I think we've just seen the box.
Yeah.
It's the story of my hobby life, that is, jumping headfirst down.
No idea of rules, but spent 200 plus on figures. And what caused this to happen? Well, George, that's exactly how I do every single period that I've ever done. I go, right, I'm going to do Risorgimento. What do I know about it? Fuck all. Right, here's £200 worth of figures. What am I going to do? Oh, I don't know. Let's go on a journey. Let's buy some 1/700 scale World War II models. I've got a room full of them now.
Yeah, it's my story, to be honest, that I will. Mexican Revolution, mostly the Peter Pig type collections, because Martin will put out an idea that he's going to write a set of rules for whichever.
I know who'll buy this.
That daft lad from Stoke.
Yeah.
And then I'll buy 2 armies minimum straight away, spending £200-300, and then regret it when the bank statement comes through.
I don't think I've ever actually spent 200 quid in one go on an army. The most I think I've ever spent is about 100 quid, and that was recently for the Bag the Hun aircraft, the 1600 stuff I did for Battle of Britain and for Malaya. And I think it was about 100 quid, I think. But I knew that I wanted them and I was going to use them, and I am using them. The other head first thing was, I just mentioned it, Doug Britanniarum, which was about 70 quid's worth of rules and bits and pieces, which I didn't get beyond reading, simply because I got no interest in wargaming that period. So the fact that I was enjoying the game so much meant that I just bought stuff. So I think that's probably the only time I've done it. I try to be quite temperate in what I do when it comes to wargaming. I try not to leap into stuff too much.
When I do it, I tend to stick to a big project and stick to it for a long time. Last year I spent 300 quid on Italian Wars cavalry. No infantry, just cavalry.
But generally, with those big purchases, you get a big discount as well, don't you?
Yeah, I got suckered into that 20% if you spend over 300 quid.
Yeah. And then the money you save, I spend
that as well.
But for thinking of Peter Pig, I think they're doing like a discount at the moment on anything over 60 quid. And I was just thinking, there's nothing I want to spend 60 quid on at the moment. There's stuff I want from Peter Pig, but I'm not going to make any savings because I know I don't. I got a load of French for the First World War, and that's my latest project. And I know I want some more stuff, and I'm just waiting until I get paid to buy some more stuff. But it's not going to be 60. 50 figures, literally 50 figures. Yeah, it's a platoon of 45.
6 packs.
Yeah, so I paid 48 quid, and that's done me a full French platoon, so I can get them on the table. I want some more stuff, but it's not going to be 60 quid's worth of stuff. You know what I mean? So I'm going to miss out on that. It's just going to be a little bit more to add in that I'll need. So yeah, I don't think I've ever paid. I was going to buy 300 quid's worth of Bacchus stuff for the Prussian army for Blucher, but that was just before lockdown, and then he started staggering the orders because they couldn't take it at the workshop, and it tempered me again. I just thought, no, I'll just wait, and I still haven't gone back to it.
It held you back.
Yeah, it did. It stopped me.
It held you back.
So I'd still be painting those bleeding things if I'd bought them.
Yeah. So thank you very much for those 2 questions, George. Moving on to good old Dex McHenry.
Hi, Dex. My opponent at the moment down
regular
at the
opponent.
Yeah. Kicking his arse all the way across Kursk.
Yeah,
I said what we'll do is once we finish this Kursk campaign is we'll do the Malaya campaign and I'll take the British so he can kick my arse all the way down Malaya. It's only fair.
So interesting question from Dex. Napoleon has had another movie done. Which historic commander really should get the Hollywood treatment and who should play them?
I saw the follow-up comment to this. I
some
think it
rude
was
ones? I can't remember.
John Sowerby has said that there should be one on Hague, having played by a donkey. To
I think I was just.
which my reply was, that's pretty much 99% of the First World War films and TV shows out there anyway.
Yeah.
Because nobody's got any imagination or does any research.
No. Well, Napoleon's always going to sell tickets, isn't he?
Yes. Yes.
He
I'm
might
looking
be-
forward
he
to the film, actually. It looks
Yeah.
very good. I don't care about the buttons are wrong or there's too many horses or not enough horses or whatever
Oh,
it is
God, yeah.
everybody's arguing about. It just looks like a good film.
It's Ridley Scott, is it? That's done it.
Ridley
Yeah,
Scott, Black and Phoenix.
He generally does decent movies, doesn't he?
He certainly
Ridley
does,
Scott.
yeah.
And although he's put Napoleon has another movie, has there been that many?
Yeah, there's the 1929 silent 9-hour version of Napoleon. There's been a couple others since then. I think there's one in the 50s.
1929's hardly fucking knocking on the door, is
Yeah,
it?
but it's still a film.
It's hardly regular.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, God. Not another
nearly
Napoleonic film. We only had one in 1929.
All right,
already.
There's Waterloo, but there is a
That was
transfiction.
1974, was it? 77?
But there is a
70.
transfiction on Napoleon as a character, isn't there? In popular culture, in documentaries and films and dramas and stuff.
Yeah. So who would we like to see a film about then?
Personally, for me, Robert E. Lee.
I don't think that'll get made now.
Well, no, but for me, it would be great if there was that more revisionist view of Lee. When I first started to read about the American Civil War 35 years ago, he was the man. He was lauded as one of the greatest generals who's ever lived. But I think more current study and academic thoughts around him have certainly tempered the view of him as one of the greatest generals who's ever lived. I did an episode on the God's Own Scale podcast with Greg and Tony from Little Wars TV, discussing, was Gettysburg the price that the South paid for having Lee in charge? And I think if you look at the statistics, actually, of his performance, it doesn't stack up that well throughout the Civil War. And then, of course, there's the whole social issues around him and the slavery issue, and which I won't start talking about, because I know there'll be people with very different opinions to me, but it's become quite a passion of mine in my reading, certainly pre-war and post-war and Reconstruction era America. I would love that there was a real no holds barred, fly on the wall sort of look into Lee.
It would be nice to have something that wasn't tainted from either direction.
Yeah. Yes.
And a lot of the problems with history and revisionist history is it's coming from a point of view.
It's one way or the other, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've said this many times when I've interviewed historians, is what if Dave Jones in 1920 gets it absolutely right and produces the historical record that is perfect.
And does that exist though?
This is my question, because in 40 years' time, somebody might come back and find some new material, and I get that, but we are 200 plus years on from Waterloo. How much new material's coming out? How many times can I read Waterloo, the new, fresh,
perspective,
slightly cleaned, Vim-toed, modern version, part 57?
Yeah.
At what stage do we settle on these are the facts.
Yeah.
But no, you don't. That's the thing with history. It's a movable feast, and some of it it depends on the society of the time that you're writing for. There are, of course, biases in everybody. However, a good historian ignores those biases as much as possible and looks at the primary evidence. And you could quite easily just nitpick various bits and pieces of stuff. Like you could say, well, we know all there is to know about the First World War, for example. Well, we don't, because half of the archives got destroyed in the Second World War. So that's something that has been lost forever. So we will never know those bits. And also, there is also parts of the archives that have never been explored. So same as Waterloo, there will always be soldiers' letters, soldiers' memoirs, soldiers' diaries that have never been explored, or there's a set of Wellington's orders that got lost on the battlefield, stuffed down the back of a sofa in Belgium that have just come to light. For things like Waterloo, there's a reasonable idea of how things went. But I still think that for example, Tony Pollard is excavating at Waterloo, has been for the last while, and they're still finding new stuff and adding new things to the history. And that's through archaeology. I mean, it's a different approach, but it's still adding something new to the sum of knowledge that we have about those things. And the more that history is a discipline and has better techniques as it goes along, those techniques move back into the discipline itself. Sorry, I'm being very academic and boring here, but there is nothing is set in stone. Basically, there are certain facts, of course there are, but there are also different ways of looking at those facts as well.
I think the problem comes when money is involved and somebody's writing a book that they want to be a bestseller. And going back to that YouTube thing, there's got to be, it's not clickbait on a book, but there has to be something in that book that is different to make it sell, to make people go, "Ooh, I didn't know that."
To kind of go back to the first point I made about John making that joke about Haig being a donkey, the donkeys itself, again, First World War, I have a passing interest in it. The book The Donkeys by Alan Clark, written in 1960, did a massive disservice to the British High Command. Haig in particular. It's an examination of the Battle of Loos, 1915. It's just when the British Army was still learning its ropes, it was still learning the trade, and it really paints the British High Command in an incredibly bad situation. But nowadays, people still refer to the British High Command as donkeys because of that book. The book itself, the first thing written in that book is a quote by, I think it's one of the German general staff. It might be Hindenburg or Ludendorff, I can't remember. It says, "They are lions led by donkeys," supposedly talking about the British Army. It's bullshit. He never said it. It was the Germans talking about the French in the Franco-Prussian War. So it's not even the same war. So it starts off with a lie. And also, Clark wrote it specifically to become a bestseller, which it did, and it still is. And it is still sold, now more so than most of the First World War books, despite now 50 years of solid academic work on the First World War. It still is, a bestseller. And it is. It's the paperback version of clickbait. And it is something that has set something in stone that people think they know that is not history, but it is written as a history book, So revisionism is important depending on its bias and depending on where it's coming from, because things like that otherwise, if you say, right, okay, we'll draw a line and say, right, this is history now. In 1960, this is how we would see the First World War. And it is just so wrong in so many places for various reasons. So
it shows the power, doesn't it, though, of that populist historian author that we've got now with the likes of Max Hastings, Anthony Beaver, James Holland. I'm not discrediting their academic nous at all, but they are the books. They are the books that will appear on the bestseller list in WH Smith's and are easily available to the common person. and Alan Clark's book was probably one of the first, wasn't it, of that populist history that's easily accessible. Doesn't matter about the content. It's just easily accessible to the masses, and therefore becomes entrenched in people's view of how things were. There's no challenge to it. You know, academia will always challenge itself, won't it? Every idea or hypothesis that's put forward will always face challenge through either current research or subsequent research that comes after it. It will always challenge the notions that are put forward. But the book that you're talking about there, Alex, is probably one of the first, isn't it, that reached that
populist history, I think. Yes, definitely. It helped that he was probably producing paperback as well as he's
yes, exactly.
And you know, and again, to state it twice, is Alan Clark, his stated aim was to create a bestseller to kickstart his writing career, which it did. You know, and it still sells today. It's probably his best known book that he wrote. He wrote plenty of other, but the thing is, you know, you look at that and you think, well, this is so badly put together. What are the rest of his history books like? You know, what's the motive behind those? But you know, he wasn't an academic historian. He was a popularist historical writer, and there's a difference. So you're wrong, Ken.
No, I'm putting talking points forward. I am cunning in these ways, but I'm 55 and it's bloody dark ages. I'm not changed. I'm not bloody changed. I've got 20, maybe 25 years of senile life left, and I can't be learning. I can't be learning history 3 or 4 times. I've learnt about the Dark Ages. I'm not interested. I don't want to learn about them again. I don't want to have to go into pre-new medieval time. I'm happy. So I'm gonna pitch Jutland the movie. With
I've just been listening to Peter Hart and Gary Baines' military history podcast, and they've been doing a massive thing on Jutland recently.
I'll have to listen to that.
Worth listening to.
I don't think it's come onto Podbean, so I haven't. I've seen it. I know he's doing it, but I can't find it.
Oh, right, okay. It's on Spotify, but if you don't have Spotify, then you don't get it.
Well,
but
I do, but I listen to everything on Podbean, you see, so it's not on there. Jellicoe, BT, the interaction between the two, get a couple of big stars, big flash battle cruiser commander, sunglasses, Brad Pitt maybe, Jellicoe, the old slower one, Anthony Hopkins, lots of staring, lots of where's he going with those battle cruisers, lots of why is he not following me with the fleet.
I think
imagine what they could do with that these days.
Theme tune by the bloke who did the Dam Busters theme tune. Never mind fucking about with bloody that stupid bird with the green hair. What's it?
It's currently decomposing, not composing.
Eilish woman.
Anya.
I don't want her to sing. I want
Hans Zimmer.
Bloody
Hans Zimmer.
Dam Busters.
Yeah.
Band of the Coldstream Guards.
That'd be a naval tune, surely.
Hearts of Oak. Hearts of Oak to a grime disco beat.
You've lost me.
Me too.
Well, you even know Hearts of Oak?
No, grime.
Grime. It's like drill music.
Oh, well, that makes it far clearer.
Yeah, you know that, don't you? You know that.
Yeah. All over drill music.
Doing these spinning the decks. Spinning the decks. Anyway, so that's mine. Sean, have you got one that you'd like to put forward?
I've put forward Lee, haven't I?
Lee, yes, Lee and Haig.
Yeah.
No, I played Lee. I could, if I had a beard, bigger beard, I could do Lee.
Nah. Needs to be somebody distinguished.
Charge the big tree over there.
Put your right hand down, Ken.
That's not looking good.
No, that's the one I can't do. I'm just pointing to it. I've got a pen in my hand.
Your pen went off screen.
Blondie, get down.
Midwinters was right.
Oh, yeah, they are totally. Bloody Lancastrians.
Somebody's got to be the Yorkshire gamer.
Yeah. Oh dear. Right, Nigel Atter on Insta.
Nigel, hello.
Nigel.
That's Sean.
What
happened to his Bois Hugo 1917 scenario?
Has he really put that question down?
He has, yeah. Well, yeah.
Nigel, we'll talk offline. It will happen. That's a lose reference.
Yeah.
Lose.
Yeah, listeners, I think that means that Sean hasn't done anything.
We need to sort out the. Alex might be able to help me here. The big coals.
The coal heaps.
Piles.
They had the. I can't remember. Yeah, I can't remember what they're called, but the winding gear, weren't it, for the coal mines?
Yes.
And you got the slag heaps as well. When we were out digging around Lewis, we used to call them Madonna's tits.
Nigel, the figures are all ready to rock, so it's just sorting out that bit. I'm sure we'll find somebody to 3D print something suitable, and we'll use square bashing, and we'll invite Alex.
Excellent.
I suppose.
Be up for that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's something like Crassions or something, isn't it? The big slag heaps.
Yes. There you go.
Crassions.
Yeah.
I thought you put them in your soup.
Crassier.
It's crush something.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
These foreign things are saying. Pie, mash, peas,
Dark Ages.
bit of endos. That's what I'm being fancy. Right, Noel Brush on the Instas. Goes out everywhere. This does. What's your go-to ECW rules? This is where Alex goes ECW. This is where Alex goes. I don't play ECW.
Don't play ECW. Next.
Forlorn Hope for me, as I've said a number of times. Chatted with Pete Berry quite a bit about it on the podcast with him. Very enjoyable set of rules. They quite innovative for the time as well, in that they lots of rules separate the pike and the shot from each other, whereas the pike and shot, sorry, not pike and shot, Forlorn Hope have a pike to shot ratio for the unit, so you're not counting figures. So you have a unit of 32, and it fights and shoots as a ratio, which was quite innovative back in the day. And we've played many. We had a game with about 3,500 figures on the table at the end of a ECW campaign that we did, and it worked brilliantly with our modifications.
He's already been mentioned, but Dex is a big ECW fan. And he keeps threatening to get me to play a game of it, which I'd said I will do. I just we haven't had time yet. And he plays Victory Without Quarter.
Don't know him.
I think it is. I think it's a free set of rules on that you can get off the internet.
They didn't even reach the voting stage of the World Cup.
They were off that website called The Perfect Captain, I think, something like that, where there's
a
few sets
I know
of different
them.
rules. Yeah,
there's some those Perfect Captain stuff are really, really well produced, and they do a Wars of the Roses one with loads of characters, and it looks brilliant. But I've just not been able to penetrate the outer crust of the rules. I just can't get in my head how they work.
The website's down now, but there is a Facebook group. And it's got links to all the rules on there. Yeah.
All the rules are on, and for free rules, they are absolutely superb.
Yeah, it's an incredible amount of work.
Very, very good.
ECW for me, this won't surprise anybody. It's the Peter Pig set Regiment of Foot, which is square based, and I think one of my favourite parts of it, well, other than the fact it's a fast play game. One of my favourite parts is in the rule book. You'll find 2 scenarios written by me, which I think you'll find are extremely.
Well. No, of course.
Yeah. No,
buy
them and get copies signed at the other parts. Coming soon.
No, my favourite part is the push of pike mechanism, which I really like. So when units come into contact, there's a little dice mechanism where you see who wins that push of pike and gets the advantage in the combat. I love that part, and they're probably one of my favourite sets of rules actually in overall. Regiment of Foot from Peter Pick.
Excellent. Second one from I've lost his name now. Noel Brush. Can Sean do some more Mexican jokes?
Did I do my tequila one?
You've done the tequila one.
I'm out then, I'm afraid.
Oh, God for that.
Oh, well.
The tequila one.
Thank God for that.
The tequila one. Just talk about my tumbleweed joke earlier on. The tequila one.
Mate, if you can find any better Mexican jokes, then you're a better man than me.
So somebody mentioned it on Facebook, and there were loads of people laughing at it.
Yeah.
I was like,
but you've got to say it in the accent, though, haven't you? You can't just deliver it in a Yorkshire accent.
Dear me, what can I say? Anyway, Simon Stokes on Facebook. Hello, Simon. Here's a question that he's pondered. Assuming 3D colour printing ever reaches an acceptable quality and price point, would you ever consider using it for mundane stuff like scenery or mass rank and file troops?
I don't think I would. 3D printing, if it's colour, 3D printed colour, would you use it for scenery and or mass rank troops? Personally, I wouldn't, because I enjoy painting. Yeah,
that's it. It's the same for me. That Venn diagram of wargaming. I'm the painter collector, and that's what I enjoy about the hobby. And I don't want a computer. I don't want a computer driving my car. I don't want a computer turning my lights on. I don't want a computer making me toast. I'll fucking do it myself. Thank you very much. And
I'm happy for all that stuff. But painting, I enjoy painting.
Yeah, I enjoy painting.
What do you call two Mexicans playing baseball?
For God's sake. He's just been Googling this, you know.
Oh, God. Is this going to get us banned?
Juan on Juan. Two Mexicans play baseball. Juan on Juan.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been Brews in the Binyard.
It's
been a pleasure talking to you over these years, and I think that joke has finally killed.
This killed us off.
Killed the show.
My God.
Yeah, I've just...
Colour printing, sure. No more jokes.
Because I was Googling that, I missed the question. I'm sorry.
Would you use colour 3D prints for terrain and soldiers without actually having to paint stuff yourself?
Yeah, well, ultimately, in the far future, if there was an option where you didn't have to paint figures to the standard that I would like to play with on the table, then yes, I would use 3D printed pre-coloured figures. Painting is a necessity, not a nicety.
So Sean's the lazy bastard of the three of us is basically what we're saying.
I'm so sorry,
Excellent. Yeah, I can go with that. Martin Kelly from Facebook. Hi, Martin. You have come up with this. Almost all the figures I buy get painted and put on the table. You hear of vast piles of unpainted lead in people's collections. What percentage of figure purchases do you think never make it to the table? And this question is for your own personal collections as well as the wider wargaming population.
My lead pile is quite small. It's far smaller than my painted pile. Because, again, we discussed this in the past, haven't we? I just buy stuff that I want to paint, and then I paint it, and then I buy something else.
Yeah.
You know, so I don't... I'm not a wargaming butterfly, so I don't just go to a show and come back with loads of lead that's never going to get painted. In fact, I very rarely buy stuff. I buy it specifically for painting it. And it's very rare that I have stuff sitting around for very long. At least these days, anyway. I've had some stuff that's sitting around for a few years, but then it's always got painted eventually. Or it's got sold if it's unpainted and I haven't done anything with it. But as a percentage in general in the hobby, from what other people have said, I think it's probably quite big. You know, I think a lot of people have probably bought a lot more than they've ever painted. Maybe 60-40. 60 unpainted to 40 painted. Depends.
Yeah,
on
me,
average.
yeah, me personally, similar to you, Alex, in that I buy what I want, but I tend to buy a lot of it. So I have got a lead pile, but it's ongoing big projects. So it's not
Yeah,
a small amount of figures; it's a
it's
large
been
amount of
worked on,
figures for
isn't
a
it?
big. Yeah, there's always, and like we said earlier on, if you can get that 20% discount for spending 300 quid, then I'll do that, and they can sit in a box for a couple of years. I've got because I paint horses with oils. I must have at least 200 painted horses with in a box with undercoated riders next to them, just waiting to be painted. But that's because of the process that I use. It's more economical to do a huge batch of horses in one go using
Yeah.
oils. So that's the reason why I do it. So for me, it's fairly low percentage. But I've heard of stories, and there's been stories told on this podcast where people have got garages, literally garages full of unpainted lead.
Yeah.
I used to be a real bugger for it, to be honest. I'm far better now than I was. I think I can think of one bag full of, oddly enough, Alex, First World War late French. When Martin very first produced them, I bought enough for a square bashing army, and I've
That must
never
be
got
quite a
round to
lot.
painting. Yeah, it's probably 150 to 200 figures, I suppose,
Yeah.
with all the extra bits like the casualties, etc. But I think that other than a few other bits and pieces, I'm not too bad. I do suspect the industry would not survive if people only bought what they painted. I think it thrives on the fact
It's a
this
reliance,
fear of
isn't it, that
missing out,
people are.
this FOMO
Yeah.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if people were like you, Alex, then wargaming would be dead and buried. So, much as I admire, and I would much rather be in the position you are, or have the mindset that you do, where you're very focused on what you game. I am that wargaming butterfly that I can read a book, can see something on the TV, read a magazine article, and suddenly I'm thinking about how I might wargame that. And occasionally I will go out and buy figures on a whim that I do regret later. I always think you should have that cooling off period, shouldn't you, of 7
You can
days?
take them back for take your figures back.
But that's the thing, isn't it? It's, it's a broad church, and you've got the space for people like that do what you do, and it is the hobby set up for people to do what you do. There's the hobbies also set up for people like me, who are focused. So there's nothing wrong with any of those approaches. It's just how you enjoy doing it at the end of the day.
Yeah. I've made a pledge with my most frequent wargame opponent, Aid, that we will try and play with what we've got rather than trying to acquire more, because it can get ridiculous at times. I know he's got several collections of figures that he's gone into with gusto, but has yet to see the table. So
Cool, nice one. Richard Speedman on Facebook. What are the best ever historical miniatures rules? And I'm asking this so Ken doesn't have to faff about with polls and stuff. And the most interesting bits, why did you pick those rules?
The
I
best
guess
ones.
what Alex is going to say.
The best ones are the ones that you like the best.
Yeah, my World War II naval rules, because they're ace. I wrote them and they're really good.
Didn't see him in the poll though.
No, because they're home brew, aren't they?
Ah.
I'm genuinely saying that because we've had so many really, really good games with that set of rules, that and so much fun and so much enjoyment, and we used to do a naval campaign every year, and just purely for the enjoyment of them and the memories of them, rather than the how they're constructed and put together. And they've never been released. They got close once, but they've never been released to the general public. So that's my favourite set of rules, and even though you can't vote for them, but I just love the memories of playing those rules.
Well, I mean, obviously mine is chain of command, but it really depends on what you want out of a game, doesn't it? It works for me.
And it's something I've never actually played. Chain of Command. I've got the rules. I'd be interested to give it a go, I have to say.
Well, let's set it up. I can have a game.
Yeah. I've just invested in some news to the world here. I've just invested in some 20 mil Norwegians.
Oh, interesting.
Some early war miniatures, man.
Yeah, because I really do like. I'm not just saying this because he's a nice guy and he was on the podcast. I really do like the stuff that he does. I think it's absolutely superb quality.
I had some of his First World War stuff and I loved it, but it was 20 mil, so I sold it on. Got 15 mil instead.
So I've been looking for a project to do that isn't massive, and obviously I'm doing the Narvik naval stuff. So reading in and around the naval battles is all the stuff, and it's quite interesting because you've got the Germans, Gerbesjägers or whatever they're called, the mountain troops, and then on the Allied side you've got Norwegians, you've got French, you've got British, and there's a Polish independent Highland Brigade. I don't quite know why it's a Highland Brigade, but they turn up as well. So there's a nice mix of troops. So I've just ordered some of those.
The Polish first Armoured Division trained up at Kirkcudbright in Scotland, so it's probably something to do with them being up in Scotland.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd certainly like to give Chain of Command a go at some stage.
All right, we'll do it. Let's do it.
Cool. Let's do it.
But what was the other question? It was
best ever historical rules and why you pick those rules.
Because they're good.
Because they're good. Like it.
Because I like them.
Yeah, I
like them.
Like playing them. If you want to know, I did an hour-long video on my love for Chain of Command, so just go and watch that.
My love for a big cock.
That'll tell you why I like a bit of cock.
Awesome.
I never hide my love of the rules that Peter Pig put out. I talk about it all the time. I bore myself talking about it. But it just gives me the sort of game that I like to play. I love my little trips down to Weymouth. I haven't been down much. I don't think I've been down this year, actually, but I normally go down there 3 or 4 times a year to take part in their games days. And I suspect it's more to do with the people who are around the table as opposed to anything else. But I've got most fond memories of my most recent gaming, or not most recent actually, over the last 10, 15 years of playing those games. So any of them really.
Awesome. That's that one done. Thank you for that question, Richard. Tim Porter from the Mad Axeman on the Twitters.
Talked about him earlier.
Yeah. Which rule set name do you most wish would get a pointless rebrand from its author? I think bolt action should now be called leather action, and see how the demographic of the sales change.
The online orders might change, man.
Yeah. You're playing leather action, bolt action tonight.
Pointless rebrand.
Yeah, I didn't really get this question. I saw it on Twitter, or X as it's called these days.
I mean, a lot of rules don't get rebrands, do they? They spend 45 seconds thinking about it and then call it LaSalle 2.
Yeah.
Second edition is just second edition, isn't it?
Yeah. Shaco 2. WRG Ancient 7th edition. What come before that? Let me think.
But they did go through a rebrand, didn't they? From WRG 7th to DBM.
Was that a rebrand or a different set after? I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, it took over, didn't it? WRG 7th.
I saw Han Chinese playing against mid-Republican Romans and lost the will to live.
Well, I'm done.
I'm out.
It was a revolution in the rules, but it took over on the competition scene as the principal set of rules, didn't it? So that was probably.
I think with a rebrand, any rebrand, let's take a famous social media platform for example. you take the risk of alienating your public. You've already spent the time and energy and money on getting people to play your game. So, Black Powder's had a redone. Was it Black Powder Deluxe or something? I can't remember.
I think
But
so, yeah, just recently.
but they're not going to suddenly change. If they changed it from Black Powder to Flintlock or Brown Bess, then there would be a group of people who wouldn't associate it with Black Powder and therefore not buy it. So it would be pointless changing the name.
Counterproductive, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think going back to Peter Pig, it happened with their AK-47 rules. So the original, or classic as it's referred to, classic AK-47 was really well loved and really got some traction, certainly in the mid to late 90s. Lots of articles in the magazine, in WI, event days, people playing it all over the place. People were converting it into other eras and periods. And then I forget when it was, probably mid 2000s, Martin wanted to rewrite the rules and came out with AK-47 Reloaded, which was ostensibly a completely different game. The figures you needed and the vehicles, etc., are the same, and there's one or two similar mechanics, but quite a change in the pre-game setup and how the game played itself. And I loved both games actually, but there was a hardcore of people who loved the original AK, who absolutely laid into Martin for making that decision and vowed never to look at AK
splitters.
Yeah, exactly. And I suspect many of them never even read it or played it to see if it was any.
Did they understand that they could still play the other game?
This is the point, isn't it? That I think some people are worried that the rules police will come round, kick your door in, and take the original rules out of your hands.
Yeah, the game still exists. You can still play it.
Yeah.
Nothing has changed. The game you loved. You don't have to play the next one. Like you say, I think rebranding, as shown recently, it is, if you build something up, to call something completely different, you lose half the audience, it just doesn't work. I don't think so. I don't know. I'd not thought about it when I saw Tim's question on Twitter, and now I realise what he was talking about. Given what's happened on Twitter,
I think back to the original version of Forlorn Hope, which was the early 1980s, and it had an orange cover, and it was that classic A5 stapled in the middle book that we've talked about many times. The how rules used to be, and then when that was reproduced as Forlorn Hope in the, it was like a stiff-binded copy. It didn't have pictures in. It was before those days. That was quite a radical change, but it stayed Forlorn Hope, and the rules more or less stayed the same as well, with maybe a few clarifications in there. But to completely rebrand, I think you're taking a massive risk.
Good luck, Mr. Musk.
Yeah. So stop trying to rebrand the Dark Ages. It's the bloody Dark Ages. As simple as that. Right, Peter O'Brien on Facebook. Hi, Peter. What do you think about the rise in the number of card-driven games?
It is just another mechanic, isn't it? To either bring in randomness or be a random number generator. I've played a game using dominoes to create random numbers.
Fives and threes.
A very good game, actually, by a guy called Graham Evans from the Wargames Developments. It was a game called, I can't quite remember what it was now, but it was what were the light Roman Republican infantry? Velites were these. Velite. Yeah. Trying to bring down a Carthaginian elephant. A really good game.
Dominoes.
Using dominoes, yeah, you didn't know.
They put the spears to one side and go, right, we're with dominoes.
Have a game of this.
Elephants go, what the bloody hell is this?
Yeah, if you can't go, you have to knock. These things come in fads, don't they, in waves. Lots of games now have cards or card-driven elements to them or for random factors. I'm nonplussed on them myself, to be honest, but that's not to say they're a bad thing.
Yeah, I think they've been around for quite a while. I mean, there's quite a lot of them, I guess, these days. I mean, Two Fat Lardies have been using them for a long time to add friction to games. So, Through the Mud and Blood is nearly 15 years old. I Ain't Been Shot Mum, even older. All their early stuff, Bag the Hun, Kiss Me Hardy. They're all card driven. It doesn't have to be cards. It could be chits. Put them in a bag. It makes no difference. You're just drawing something out with a different number on it. What I like about card-driven games, I mentioned that I don't like, decks of cards, playing card games, because that takes me out of the game. I like a set of cards specifically for the game. What I like about them is that you can add whatever element you want into it as part of that deck. So, for example, in I Ain't Been Shot Mum, there is the blank card, which stands in for anything you want. You can have a number of blank cards in the deck. So when 4 are drawn before the turn ends, something happens, for example. If the turn ends before that, then nothing happens, that kind of thing. But it adds that little element to it. You can put in stuff for vehicle breakdowns if they happen before the turn ends, that kind of stuff. I like card data-driven games when there is a break card in it, so like a tiffin card or a tea break card. Then the Two Fat Lardy stuff, where the turn you might not get to do everything you want to do, because I love that bit of friction. But again, that can be done quite easily just with a set of chits drawn out of a bag. It makes no difference. It's only the same as drawing the dice for bolt action, for example. But horses for courses, isn't it? Doesn't work for every game.
I'm sure in one of the old Featherstone books, maybe Advanced War Games, he had a random element in the rules where you wrote on a card on some cards and drew one every other turn or something like that. So
yeah, he probably did.
Yeah.
He did a lot.
But those classic games like Pony Wars and Sands of Sudan are very much card driven.
Yes, very much.
So it's nothing new, and it's a mechanic that you either like or dislike. I particularly like it because we have a lot of the games that we play that we've written our own rules for. We have an activation deck and then an event deck, and event cards will come out in the activation deck, and then you roll for control of the event, and it might be a unit loses its colours or whatever, and whoever's got control of it plays it. And that's a little bit of dice versus dice competition that adds a little bit of uncertainty to what card you're going to draw, who gets to play it, and how they play it. So it's something different for us that we enjoy.
I particularly like the card mechanism in Sharp Practice, because that's a push your luck mechanism, in that you collect command cards which allow you to do certain things. 1 doesn't allow you to do great amounts of stuff. 4 does, but there is also a turn end. So it's like when you've got 3 cards in your hand, do you play them then, or do you wait on for that 4th one to come up? Because once the turn ends, they then become practically useless. So I like that. It's making you make choices, and it's making you think about what you're going to do with the cards in your hand, rather than just a random turn and it's stuff coming up.
Excellent. Right, well, we're downhill. We've got 3 to go. So, Andy Rawson on Facebook. Andy's been on your podcast, hasn't he, Sean?
Yep.
Used to be a member of the Leeds Club. Question for the Binyard Bunch. What are your opinions and thoughts on home brew rules, either adaptations or published rules or complete in-house concoctions?
Well, we know what yours are, Ken, because
I think they're bloody awesome.
Personally, I think I can't write rules as good as somebody else, so let someone else do it.
Yeah, I'm miles better than everyone, so it's very much dependent on how you play your games.
Yeah.
So if you go along to a club and play different people each week, then not a lot of use. But if you game as I do with the same people at the same location all the time, then you get used to the same rules, and you're not having to cater for other people's armies or other people's setups or other people's basing, because you've got effectively, like you two were in the cellar, a captive audience. But if you're going down to your local game store to rent a table and play a game, then they are no use at all.
Yeah. Yeah, because the other person's got to learn them unless they're playing them with you continually. Yeah. Otherwise, you can both take home a set of rules and read them at home, can't you? And come with the same ideas.
And I think for the vast majority of people, certainly from our age group, they are quite used to tinkering with rules and having house rules and stuff like that. Whereas the generation or people who play competitions or play at a local club store will stick strictly to what's in the rule book.
Yeah, to be honest, I used to tinker with rules. These days, I don't so much. I don't bother because, again, I figure these things have been probably play tested to within an inch of their lives. It's very, very rare that I make any changes from rules as written, and that's not to say I'm a rules lawyer. If somebody comes up with a better idea in a game and says, I do get things wrong. So I inadvertently add my own rules to something because I'm not playing it right. but I generally don't purposely try to tinker with them too much. But that's just again because I figured somebody else can write rules much better than I can. So why bother? They've written them well.
I think it's important to remember that the people who write rules are homebrew rules. They're their homebrew rules.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But they just happen to be
published
in a position where they can publish them, and they've got time to make sure that they work and other people can use them. So you could write a set of rules and sell them for 40 quid, and then change two things and call it something else and sell it again for 40 quid with different photographs.
Sounds like a right good business idea, that does. Be millionaires this time next year.
Mentioning no names.
Mentioning no names.
It depends if a big model company buys you up or not.
So I've got my shares to think about. 18p.
I think I might invest tomorrow.
Yeah.
What about you, Sean? Because you play Peter Pig rules and you'll love them. Do you change any of those? Do you do any?
No, and oddly, for probably the last 15, 20 years, I've been in the playtest groups for just about every set of rules they've released over that period. And I must be thick because I very rarely come up with any useful contribution that beats something that's already there. It's just not my forte. I'm just not good at that sort of thing, to be honest. The odd +1 or -1 there, maybe I've done in the past, but I do prefer, as you say, Alex, to trust the rules writer. And if I enjoy the game, then I don't see any need to house rule
to
it.
think. A friend of mine, he's been writing his own rules for about 10 years now, and we keep playtesting it, and we've been playtesting it, and he's like, oh, now we've got version 8, and I've thrown out all these rules, and now we play. So it's like every time we sit down to play, we're playing a different game.
Yeah.
And I just do not get that satisfaction out of it because it's like, right, I'm starting with a brand new set of rules again, that have got some slight semblance to the last set of rules that we played a year ago. I want to play rules that have been written, that have been finalised. Yeah, really. Yeah. And I just I don't like the playtesting phase of it, to be honest.
I've done a lot of that playtesting when I go down to Weymouth. There's the ancient rules are just about finished now. The Mexican Revolution, the Spanish Civil War, Vietnam, all these various sets of rules I've playtested. But really, my contribution has been non-existent, really.
Again, it was the friends you made along the way, though.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's the taking part that counts.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
That's what they always say to users.
And +1 for any regiment with the Yorkshire in the name.
Yeah,
absolutely.
In the Mexican Revolution, that might be limited, but I'll take that.
Was there not a Yorkshire regiment in the Mexican Revolution?
Well, I'm sure there will. I'll find one.
Yeah. Definitely.
My wife's going
God,
to kill me.
Nearly finished. Well, she knows by now how long these bloody things take. So when I said to my missus earlier on, she said, "Oh, who's on the podcast tonight?" He said, "Oh, it's Sean and Alex." And she said, "Right, well, I'll see you tomorrow when I come home from work then."
Them idiots.
Fucking M3, fucking idiots. Right, anyway, we're very, very close to the end. So Dex McHenry on Facebook, they've got a second question in. And this is what prompted my eviction of you two from the cellar. And it's scattered terrain is becoming more and more detailed and immersive. Who would the panel recommend for inspiration as the Percy Thrower / Alan Titmarsh of Wargames Gardening? So, as we said earlier on, we do like a trimmed bush.
If you want somebody to play in your garden, you have to keep the lawn well trimmed.
Absolutely.
My granddad used to always tell me that.
Mm-hmm.
I find if you have pampas grass in your garden, everyone comes round to play.
No shortage.
They all want a bit. They're
all dressed in leather, though. What's that all about?
Lederhosen.
I've never got through so much lard in my life.
Oh, God. Flashbacks.
Right.
To answer his question, I'm going to jump in with two here.
Oh, don't do two, because you'll do the one I'm going to think of.
Okay. First one is Joe Bilton, Joe the Wargamer.
That was one of my two.
Second one, Mark Brotherton.
Oh no, painter. I'm all right. I've got one. Still got one.
Okay. Tactical painter. He's actually literally just written a blog post on his tactical painter blog about scatter terrain and in particular gardens and what we call curtilage in the business, which is curtilage stuff that is around a building. So backyards, front yards, all that kind of stuff. Scatter terrain. Vineyards. Yeah. And it's something that I take to heart. I think, when you place a building on the tabletop, most people just do it as the building. Buildings have gardens, they have yards, they have stuff around them. So even a little bit of scatter terrain just adds to it. And both of those two, Mark and Joe, are absolute experts at it.
Very good. I was the one I've got left is David Marshall, obviously, in TM Terrain. He just does everything fantastically, annoyingly fantastic. But I have seen Nick Skinner did some lovely
Arnhem stuff. Al Sheward as well. Al Cal on Twitter, fantastic. He's doing the MGS Crossroads, and I'm going to be playing it at Ebo Lard, and it is amazing, absolutely amazing. Fantastic. You could look at that table all day long.
Is it topiary when they trim the bushes?
Yes, it is.
It is topiary.
Yeah.
They have they'll trim it into a big cock and stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
Nick Skinner was my.
I'm doing a one-handed tree trimmer here.
Nick Skinner was my vote, just purely based on the Arnhem.
Yeah.
Stuff that he did. That table I saw at Partisan was just incredible. The amount of the level of detail, not just the amount, but the level of the detail there was something I don't think I've seen before, to be honest.
I think it's the standard and quality of Wargames Terrain has gone on leaps and bounds in this last couple of years. It really has made a big jump.
This is something that I've really picked up on and been involved with the Lardy Games Days, because the amount of effort that everybody puts into their tables. We were talking earlier about immersion and about cards and things. And nowadays, I'm more into the immersion of the game than winning or losing, and it makes me physically sick seeing people down at our club playing on bottle green MDF boards. When I think you can get a sheet, a fantastically printed wargaming map for next to nothing these days. And it does. It's not heavy. Bring it down. Just throw it over your tabletop. Just make it look nice. You've spent all this time painting these figures. Make it look nice.
Can I just mention another couple, and I don't know the names, unfortunately, but they are part of the Lardy scene. And I see the pictures of their games at various Lardy events. And I think it's a lady and a man. I think, I don't know if the
Jenny
yeah.
and I can't remember her partner's name. They do a lot of Iron Bean Shop Mum stuff.
Yes.
But yes, their tables are incredible.
Always look great. They do. Really well done.
The standard of the Lardy. I mean, I've done Steel Lard a couple of times.
Yeah, of course. And
I need to get one of these.
Yeah, the standard of the tables is as good, if not better, than many wargame shows. It's absolutely astounding.
And it's literally for a day, and it's to play on them as well. That's the thing as well. That's the other thing.
They're not just displays.
No, you are playing a game on a fantastic looking table, and it just inspires you as a gamer to do better.
I need to break my duck and get to one of these Lardy days.
Well, Steel Lard, soon enough. I think it'll be in November time.
November.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll let you know. I'll drop you a message when we get all about it.
Yeah. I might just go as a punter this time rather than putting a game on.
I'm going to Tweeball Lard, which is run by John Savage. That one's up in Yorkshire. It's quite a smaller one though, because he only has a small space to do it in. But
Green Hamilton, isn't it? Yeah.
Actually, Nottingham in 2 weeks is Lard Workshop.
Of course, for BritCon. At BritCon, is that right?
Yeah. I'm saying this off the record, but I know I had an email earlier from Don. Some people have dropped out, so you might be able to jump in on that if you get a chance.
Well, message me offline, Alex, and I'll see what I can do there. Yeah.
Cool. And the final question for the night from Andy, our friends of General Haig on the Twitters. And the question to each of you: following the Napoleon film, there will inevitably be a Hollywood remake of Brews in the Binyard. Bit B1. Which actor do you want to play you?
Go. I'll let you go first, Alex.
I'm trying to think.
Martin Sheen. I'm going Martin Sheen because he can play anyone. Tony Blair. That bloke from Leeds United, Brian Clough.
That bloke from Leeds United. When you said Martin Sheen, for some reason I thought about Apocalypse Now. What's his name?
Oh, yeah.
Charlie Sheen. No, Charlie Sheen's his
Martin Sheen as well. It is Martin Sheen as well. Yeah. So, in fact, talking of famous people, when I was on holiday, we came out of we stayed in a bunker, stayed in a World War I bunker.
You know how to live it up, you do.
Excellent.
Well, I tell you, it was really well done. Well done out. And Mrs. Riley was a bit annoyed that I kept going up into the turret and pretending to fire at ships that were passing. But you know, you have whiskey when you're on holiday. And you're on holiday. You do daft things. You're on holiday, aren't you? Anyway. Bugger me, we're going for a pint of milk round the corner. Who walks past? Gordon Brown, ex-Prime Minister, with his missus and his two lads.
Well.
All right, Gord, how you doing, mate? Who the fuck are you?
Did you throw an egg at him and did he punch you?
No, he's security.
Was that Gordon Brown?
He's security
John
guy.
Prescott.
That, you know, when he shows you his pistol, you know,
do you want some?
I'm from Yorkshire, mate. Do you want? Oh, bloody! I'll put your bullet. I'll eat it. I'll bite it in my teeth and run towards you.
So this is not answering the question.
Yeah, your stories of me ferrets.
Because I'm the compo. I'm the compo of this merry band. I would have Bill Owen, but obviously he's dead.
Yeah.
So I'll have...
I don't think that's going to be a restriction, to be fair.
All right, well, I'll go with that. But if it's got to be somebody alive, it'd be Steve Pemberton from League of Gentlemen and Inside Number 9.
Okay.
Very good. Very good.
I really can't think of anyone.
Shut you up, hasn't it?
It has. I can't think of anybody.
Sean Bean. Is he?
Now, why is his name Sean Bean? It should either be Sean Bourne or Sean Bean, shouldn't it? You can't have it both ways.
That's Sheffield for you.
Yeah.
I have to say, there's a chap on Twitter, historian. I do have a great deal of respect for him. Charles Escadale, is it? He was slagging
Not
off.
familiar with it.
He was slagging off Sean Bean playing sharp. And sorry, mate.
Bad
Just
times.
fucking
Bad times.
people have been
barred.
knocked out for less.
He's barred.
He might be from London in the books, but he changed it, didn't he? Bernard Cornwall later on, he said in his books that he was from Yorkshire and he got moved down to London in a children's home.
Nobody else could play sharp ever.
No.
Yeah. If they ever remake it, I will refuse to watch it.
I've seen pictures of because it was originally going to be
one of the McCann brothers.
One of the McCann brothers, yeah. I've seen pictures of it and it just doesn't look right.
He'd have been Scouse as well, so that would have been terrible.
Yeah.
He's not
totally different.
He's not going to say bastards. Is he? No.
Not a chance.
So, Charles, you're a fantastic historian, mate, but you don't know anything about sharp. That's all I can say. Well, gentlemen, it has been an absolute pleasure once again.
Who for?
Not for pleasure me. Was all yours.
If we're annoyed this time, I'm sure we'll find out on Twitter very soon. But we've drawn our World Cup. We've had a fantastic
some interesting clashes.
Some interesting clashes there. We want to keep hold of to keep a look on as it progresses through the rounds and see how the various rules get on. Anything from you guys until we wrap off?
I don't think so. I think everything that we could ever say has been said.
In 5 episodes, each 3 hours.
The entire history
of wargaming and beyond. Literally.
No point saying another word.
No.
Anyway, I've got to go and feed my German Shepherd.
That's what they call it in Yorkshire these days. I'll go and shake hands with the unemployed.
And I'll go and touch my pussy.
Yay!
Good night.
Good night. Well, everyone, I hope you enjoyed that episode of Brews in the Binyard. We're 3 hours and 40 minutes into the episode, would you believe? But I really, really enjoy recording the Brews in the Binyard. A lot of work goes into the normal interview ones, background, etc. And though there is some planning for these Brews in the Binyard episodes, I do just let them go, and thankfully the interaction between myself and Sean and Alex makes me smile, and I hope it makes you smile as well. And I hope you enjoyed that. We shall be back with more Brews in the Binyard at Christmas time. Just leaves me to say that the next guest for episode 47 will be David Manley, and David is big into the naval wargaming scene. As many of you who follow me in other areas will know, I particularly enjoy naval gaming. Recent projects include 1-400 scale Jutland, all 250 ships. None of this 1 destroyer equals 5 rubbish. And recently I've been doing a 1-700 scale World War II naval project. So David's done lots of stuff in relation to naval wargaming. He has done rules and various projects. He does some 3D printing of ships, and it's kind of his day job as well. So we'll talk more about that when he comes on, and we'll talk in great deal of detail about naval wargaming. And although I absolutely love it, why is it so unpopular? Well, we'll find out, shall we? I'm looking forward to speaking to David. So that will be out in 3 weeks' time. And get voting in the War Games World Cup historical rules that will be on the Yorkshire Gamer Facebook, and keep an eye on Twitter and stuff like that for other announcements. So thanks once again for listening to Yorkshire Gamer. Give us a like and a follow wherever you find this. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to it. Help to spread the news and get more people listening. Thanks once again. Until next time. Siddiq.